please welcome the Doom Debates robot.
Oh, okay. I'm so glad that I got to be here for this.
Doom Debates robot.
It's knocked down the...
Alright.
Is that an AI safety YouTuber?
Yeah.
You're going down, Miles.
Okay.
This whole party is going to be a whirlwind. It's all going to go by really fast. So I see there's already people in the live stream. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to believe who the next guest is. Come to the official start of the party. Let's all give a salute. Professor Max Tegmark. Max, how's it going,
Myron, so good to see you.
Thanks so much for joining our stream.
Good, I have to show you my t-shirt.
Oh my God, just don't build AGI, and it's like an upside down Nike. All right, very nice, very nice. You know, it's we can do a contest, whichever one the viewers like more. So Max, you know, you've got the headline review on this book, right? Tell us about, elaborate on your book review.
Well, I really stand by saying it's the most important book of the decade because we're in the kind of an emperor's new clothes situation. The emperor has no plan. These companies keep saying, yeah, we're going to build super intelligence. It's going to be so great. It's going to be safe. Except for this little dirty secret that none of them has put forth a plan for how they're going to keep that under control. And the reason they haven't is because they don't have one. We even did a paper, me and a few grad students at MIT, where we took the most promising sort of pseudo plan that's been put out called nested scalable oversight, which is when you have a really smart AI controlled by a slightly dumber one, controlled by a slightly dumber one, etc. And we tested it. We found that there's no evidence at all that it works. So it's so great that Eliezer and Malo here are the ones who basically call the king naked and just really plainly point out that there is no plan. We're driving towards a cliff.
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that. Let's talk about the nobody has a plan situation, because I've been in a failed company. In fact, I started a failed company. I've been in the top leadership of a failed company. And I can pattern match what it's like when a big organization is failing at, you know, not knowing what they're doing, at a critical piece of what they're supposed to be doing, you know, because I was guilty of it. I know exactly what it's like on the inside. So when I look at how the AI companies are talking about their plan to steer the future of AI, I personally get that same sense of like, yes, you know, they're just BSing it. They don't have that person in the center who actually has a plan or knows what they're doing, but they're running around with their chicken's head cut off, but they're acting like they're not.
You know why they're so good at BSing it? Because fake it till you make it is the main thing you learn when you're a VC in the Valley, right? And when you're doing startups.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's very true. You know, move fast and break things. There's a lot of startup lessons. And I do get the sense, especially from Sam Altman, of like, guys, I got this. You know, I have the confidence because I've navigated so many different startup situations. I have a data bank of different patterns for startups, and it's just the wrong training.
Yeah, except fake it till you make it. Normally, the only victim is the company that goes bust. And here, it's likely to be all of humanity.
Exactly right. So, Max, I got another hard-hitting question for you. How are you such a cool original thinker? Because in 2007, that was actually the first time I ever heard of you. I was in college, and I met Eliezer Yudkowsky, one of the first times I met him. Actually, I think this was 2008 at the Singularity Summit at the time, and I was just talking to Eliezer at lunch or something, and he started telling me about Tegmark worlds, and I've never heard of you, never heard of Tegmark worlds. And you know, that was just my first exposure to this concept. And then I read your book, Our Mathematical Universe. I guess that was a few years later. And I'm like, you convinced me that there's a multiverse. And yeah, I mean, you definitely just stand out as like one of the top 10 intellectual influences. So how are you always coming up with these ideas that are sticking, you know, so profound?
I don't know, a lot of people think I'm a total loser, so value judgments I'll leave to other people. But, you know, I've always been fascinated by big questions ever since I was a teenager. I remember lying in the hammock I put between two apple trees in my parents' backyard and feeling that the two biggest questions were our universe out there and our universe in here, intelligence and consciousness. And I spent the first quarter century of my career mostly on the first one and then working on the second one kind of since. And I just love big questions. And to me, the gist of science is really humility. That you'd rather have questions you can't answer than answers you can't question. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why many times I have just started working on something that other people considered nuts or too or wrong-headed or whatever. Because I felt if I see the logic, I feel working on this really makes sense, and everyone else says it's bullshit. I'll work on it anyway. I remember I got an email from a professor once shortly after I got my PhD, saying that I should stop working on parallel universes and stuff like that because it was going to destroy my career. It was best relegated to bars. So I forwarded that to my dad. And he replied with a Dante quote, segui il tuo corso e lascia dir la gente, follow your own path and let people talk. And this is, to this day, been my approach to science. And I think the reason it's worked is because you're never going to be the first to discover something or the first to start a great company if you're just following everyone else. And this is something I admire so much about, for example, Eliezer, because he also totally blazed his own trail with a very unconventional career path. And I really admire that.
Totally. Okay, here's what I'm wondering. When did you get doom-pilled? Because the first time I really heard you talking about these same ideas from Eliezer, it felt like it just wasn't your area to do public conversations about. And it's only been like, I don't know, a couple years ago when you really came out as a doomer. So what's been your evolution?
That's so funny. The people who like to call me a doomer are people like Jan LeCun who, think what I say is all bullshit. So this is more, I think many people fail to realize that I've been dead serious about this for a very long time just because I'm a cheerful guy and it kind of masks it. And because I refuse to believe that it's inevitable we're going to go off this cliff, I think if people actually wake up, which I hope this book will help do, we can absolutely change course because very few people on the planet, if they understood, would actually want it. So I'm an optimist in that sense. And I don't think much is gained by walking around looking gloomy. But no, I have certainly since for well over a decade felt that we were driving towards a cliff as a human species with the quest for superintelligence. That's why I spearheaded this Puerto Rico 2015 conference where I brought together Eliezer with a bunch of CEOs and others to have a more fruitful conversation. And that's why also I had the idea to start the Future of Life Institute. So I haven't particularly changed my level of concern. What has changed, I think, is that the technology has progressed even faster than most people thought, including myself. So in 2015, even recently 6 years ago, most of my AI colleagues thought we were decades away from passing the Turing test.
Yeah.
Oops. And that's added more of an urgency, I would say.
That's right. And yeah, when I ask you that question, it slipped my mind because I've known Jan Tallinn since 2012, Jan Tallinn. And I was thinking like, surely you don't go back as far as Jan on learning the doom arguments. And then I totally forgot you and Jan co-founded Future of Life Institute together. And like you said, you organized that 2015 conference. And that was instrumental in getting different people introduced who started AI companies. So that's right. I mean, you really are an OG of thinking about taking this seriously. And to be honest, you were probably taking it more seriously than I was. Like I wasn't organizing conferences back then. Like I'd read less wrong, but I was just not doing anything about it whatsoever.
One thing I learned earlier in my life also was what a massive bystander syndrome there is in the world, and how often it's actually quite possible to make major change, and it doesn't happen just because no one actually tries hard. So it was in that spirit that I decided to go all in and try to organize that Puerto Rico conference, even though most people I asked said it was never going to work, that people weren't going to come.
Yeah, what are your thoughts in retrospect on the conference and the possibility of another conference?
Well, the goal that I had with it, for myself at least, was to mainstream AI safety, because before that, most people who did AI research thought that those who worried about extinction and things like that were just sort of crazy people who foamed at the mouth. And I felt it was absolutely ridiculous that the people who were actually mostly building the tech couldn't be involved properly in the argument. So that's why we went all in and brought in DeepMind, Eliezer, a whole bunch of top academics, etc. to the conference. So that was good. It certainly may help mainstream it. What was maybe a bit unfortunate is that Ilya Sutskever and Elon were seen talking in a corner, and that might have contributed to OpenAI getting started.
Right.
And yeah, these counterfactuals are always tricky, but
Totally, yeah. I mean, Eliezer has said something like that might kind of be the turning point where we went from people in the know, like Demis Hassabis, being very careful and trying to build narrow AI, and then certain other people being like, oh, wow, there's a lot of power to be grabbed if we build the most broad AI as quickly as possible. Let's do that, which I don't think is your fault for planning the conference. I still think, like you said, counterfactually, I still think the conference is a good move, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
yeah, but yeah, Demis is a very smart and very well-meaning guy, and I've known him for, I think, over 13 years now. But frankly, almost everybody on Earth feels that they're the good guy, and the other CEOs who are racing towards AGI also have some story they tell themselves about why what they're doing is right. And there's a strange sort of symmetry here where all the leaders of OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, and XAI all feel that this is so dangerous that only they can do it safely and only they should do it. So I don't think it's fair to call out one of them as the good guy among all the others.
Huh. Okay. Well, I might have disagree with you there, but that's okay. I mean, to each their own. Okay. So
I'm not saying that they're all
yeah.
equally pro safety. I'm just saying that I don't feel that any of them. I've never heard any of them give a really, to me, convincing justification for why they should A, race to superintelligence, and B, not come out very strongly in favor of binding regulation right now. Why doesn't Google DeepMind or Anthropic, for example, go lobby the government hard and be like, hey, take our internal voluntary commitments and turn them into binding US law? They're not doing that. And
Totally.
maybe it's because there's some level of bullshit going on here.
I'm glad you brought that up, because from a messaging perspective, it seems like the best messaging, the safest messaging would be to be very explicit, to be like, look, we are kind of stuck on the back of a bus. Like we're glued to the back of a bus, and the bus is moving, so we're running alongside it, and the bus is driving toward a cliff, and so we're kind of helplessly running. And it would be great if the government would come down and stop the bus so we could all take a breath, right? It'd be very explicit about that.
Absolutely. So this is a challenge to any people who are listening to this, who work for any of these companies. Please make internal noise and ask your peers and your bosses, how about we take our internal voluntary commitments and openly say that we want those to be laws? And how about using our best large language model and drafting a law that says that, and talking to the lobbyist in the company and the CEO and ask them to go push this? I feel people are way too timid inside the companies, frankly.
Great. Yeah, let's talk a little more about mechanism of impact, right? So this book is coming out. We're raising awareness. We're getting mutual knowledge where the more Eliezer is going on all these different shows, he just went on Sam Harris. He went on Doom Debates, so that's really going to put him on the map. The more PR that he's doing, it's going to create, a grassroots, it's going to create mutual knowledge. But besides that, what else is there to do? You mentioned have these different companies have better messaging, right? Talk to the government, be explicit that there's a safety concern, that they need to be regulated. So what else? What do you think are the biggest mechanisms of impact here?
All right. I think people who work in the safety teams in the companies, they need to stop being so damn afraid of ruffling some feathers and actually show some spine, and demand that their company push for starters, passing binding regulation, right? And I admire the small fraction of people from some safety teams who've actually quit because they made some noise, but even people who for some reason feel they're too scared to quit, this is something they can very safely do. Make some public statements, make some internal statements. People who are not in the companies and are interested in AI safety, maybe doing their PhD in AI or something like that, I would very much encourage them to just not work for any of the companies at this point, not even on the safety team. Tell the recruiters that I'll work for your company if your company publicly pushes for some kind of regulation. Because as I said again, I think for a person to say, I'm going to work for this as a bus driver on this bus that's driving towards the cliff, and I'm just going to get my stock options and keep going forward, and I'm not going to, or maybe I'm not going to push for regulation. I'm not going to do anything that really slows down this crazy race is ridiculous. Anthropic, most people who are into safety seem to have the idea that Anthropic is a net positive in the world because they talk the most about safety, and they came in #1 in our safety ranking with a great score of D+ in existential safety. But they don't have a plan, and Anthropic either, for how to keep control of superintelligence. They're hoping that they are going to come up with a plan for how they are going to control their own future superintelligence that they're going to build.
Right.
Which I would argue there's nothing they don't have. But even worse, they have no plan at all for how they're going to prevent, for example, OpenAI from getting superintelligence, right? The only way people at Anthropic can accomplish that is if they push for regulation. And I'm glad that they are supporting SB 53 now in California, but that's like so weak sauce. And then, so I gave some advice for what people can do who are nerds like us. The rest of everybody out there in the world, right? They have a ton of influence here because, polling shows that the vast majority of Republicans and Democrats just don't want this thing. And hopefully those percentages will get even more sky high after the book comes out here. They need to make noise and make sure that they don't just say so in polls and so on, but actually go out and fight the fight. I think time is ripe for a really broad social movement here to insist that nobody should have the right to build superintelligence until there's a broad scientific consensus that it can be controlled, which there isn't, and B, there's really strong public buy-in for it, and the fact is there isn't. So, if you look at other social movements and compare, things actually feel more optimistic. Look at for example, the gay rights movement. Whatever people's political opinion is about this, when it started, support for what they were asking for, say gay marriage, was probably under 20%, and they still succeeded. This issue, hey, let's not all drive off a cliff together and go extinct or lose control to some completely psychopathic robots, is already over 70%. So this is an easy battle to win if we just fight it, but it can't just be nerds like you and me. You got to get faith leaders, to take a stand and say, we're against this. You got to get people who have a job, who want their children to have a job, to take a stand and say, I don't want my kids to just be entirely useless and redundant and replaced and have to hope that they're going to get a handout from the government. You have to get all these people who have so much to lose actually organize. And if that happens, then we're good. We can build a good future with AI tools that cure cancer and so on, and not have to lose sleep over someone ruining it for us all.
A lot of people in the chat are saying that they'd like to see even stronger words from you. And to be clear, this is the audience who watches my stuff tends to be extra alarmed, which I count myself in that audience. And so maybe we can dial it up a notch. For example, let's talk about protests. Like, are you on the same page as me that like we really should be seeing large protests at this point in the game if we are to have a higher chance of living?
Hell yeah.
All right, I'll take a hell yeah.
I think
that sounds good. Yeah, so Holly from PauseAI,
protest is because most people don't get it, don't understand what's about to happen.
Right, exactly right. Yeah, and I went on the street in my small town here, and I talked to random people about, hey, artificial intelligence, are you concerned about it? And the typical reaction was like, no, I tried ChatGPT 2 years ago. Like, trust me, it's fine. It's really like eyes closed, walking into the razor blades here.
Yeah, have you seen the movie Don't Look Up?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, that movie is much more funny if you think about the asteroid as being super intelligence. You have all this asteroid denial, people saying there is no asteroid. You're having people saying, yeah, the asteroid is going to hit Earth, but it's going to be so beneficial, and we just got to make sure it hits the US before it hits China. Right. If you just give people some very basic education about what's actually going on, I think we get mass protests. We get politicians paying attention because they don't want to lose elections. And I'm so grateful that this book comes out and just so bluntly calls out the emperor for having no clothes again.
Exactly right. Yeah. So that's basically the gap we need to close. People seeing this title, if anyone builds it, everyone dies. One guy was like, oh, so you're talking about UFOs? And I'm like, no, hello. Like, we have to move the Overton window. So yeah, I think
UFOs
really
isn't bad though as a go-to, Lyron, because that's probably the best way of thinking about it. If we get invaded by aliens and UFOs in 2 years, if you ask people, is that something you would support? They would be like, hell no. And these machines that are going to take over the world if we don't change course, they are way more alien than your average Martian with 2 arms and 2 legs, because they don't have any evolutionary past that gave them human-like traits even. They can be just utterly psychopathic.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got to go to the next guest. So give the audience your final word of advice or call to action.
We're driving towards a cliff. People quibble about how close we are to it. If we're going to lose control to the machines we build in 1 year or 5 years or 10 years, I think it's a waste of time to quibble much about that. Either way, instead we should just turn the steering wheel. We can have a really inspiring future with AI tools that help us cure diseases and make us more empowered and prosperous. But that's not the path we're on. We have to demand this. So we want the future, a humanity first future. We want the future where nobody is allowed to build stuff like this before we can show that it can be controlled. And it's so easy politically. You just have to stop corporate welfare to these companies. Just treat them like we treat all other companies, airplane companies, drug companies. They can't sell powerful new products without first meeting some safety standards. Why should AI companies have less safety standards on their products than a sandwich shop in San Francisco? It makes no sense. And once we help people understand that this makes no sense, I think we can win this and have a future where we get all the upside of AI without the doom.
Hell yeah. All right, Max Tegmark, thanks so much. I think I speak for a lot of the audience who watches my stuff. We're huge fans of your contribution, and we really wish that the world just had more people on your level. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. We got next guest coming up. All right, I want to introduce you guys to Professor Roman Yampolskiy. Let me give you some background info. Dr. Roman Yampolskiy is a director of the Cybersecurity Lab at the University of Louisville. He's authored over 100 publications, and he's been profiled in major media outlets with recent appearances on the Joe Rogan Experience and Diary of a CEO. In my opinion, he's one of the best AI risk communicators out there. Roman, welcome.
Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. So have you been reading this book already, and what are your initial impressions?
I only got it recently, so I haven't gotten beyond the title yet, but the title really gets it. If anyone does build superintelligence, we're all going to regret it, and maybe all of us dying would not be the worst outcome. There is also suffering risks to worry about.
Great, so you agree with the title. Nice. Okay. So by the way, I really loved your appearance on Joe Rogan. I don't know if you remember, like the day before you went on, he had Amjad Masad on, and the whole thing was like, yeah, superintelligent AI, who even knows? Roger Penrose says that consciousness might be caused by microtubules. Nobody knows anything. There's just so much doomerism out there. Just like ignore it all. Who knows? And then you came on and Joe Rogan was like, it's a breath of fresh air to have somebody who keeps it real and like acknowledges the risk. So thanks for being that palate cleanser, Roman.
We actually had a direct debate with CEO of Replit. He was very interesting to discuss this with, and I learned on Joe Rogan that he was the previous guest, so it was a nice surprise.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. I caught your other debate too. Yeah, I mean, so you're definitely killing it. Like I said, you're one of the foremost people, and you've got that professor credential. So nobody can character assassinate you because you publish papers. You've done the work basically, right? You've done the work for how long? 2 decades now?
It never stopped people on the internet from destroying your credibility, so I wouldn't put too much into those 3 letters. But the challenge is open. Anyone can show that, in fact, it's possible, that the proofs don't work, that there is mistake in any other papers. The challenge has been out for years.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me share a clip from Eliezer's book. I guess this might be a new clip for you, but take a look, and then we'll get your reaction. All right, here we go, guys. Clip.
This book is saying if anyone builds it, everyone dies. When you say everyone dies, what is that a metaphor for?
It's not a metaphor for everything. I mean, everybody literally actually dead, as in ceasing to breathe.
Okay, so are we in danger right now?
Right now, I do not quickly expect that we will die before this video moves.
Fair enough, yeah. There's some chance it's already too late and we're all going to die very soon. There's also some other chance that we might have 2 whole decades or more before they release something incredibly unstoppably dangerous, right? So we have wide intervals.
2 decades does start to feel like it's pushing it, barring international policy changes.
All right, so what are your thoughts? Is 2 decades a lot?
It would be nice to have that much. If we are getting to true AGI and superintelligence in 2-3 years, then we may not have that long. I have to say, I'm very happy to see both Eliezer and Nate get beards. I feel like I bring beards back. This is already an accomplishment.
All right, I'll get right on that, Roman. All right, let's talk mechanism of impact. I don't know if you heard, I was talking with Max of, after this book launches, what do you think are the highest leverage ways to improve our situation right now?
So it seems that now the conversation is in the public square. Then I look at the numbers of views, the podcasts you mentioned, we're talking, 10, 20, 30 million viewers who are engaging, who are super interested. I think we just hit 30,000 comments just in that last episode alone. There is no shortage of conversational interest, but there is no actual plan to move forward. Short of, we don't want to build it because it's not in my best interest. I don't see anything else actually working. I think a lot of governance ideas are just security theater. You can make all sorts of things illegal. It doesn't actually make a difference on the ground. So we need people to actually accept that you cannot do it right. You cannot benefit from it, and you'll regret making it happen.
But what do you think is going to make them accept that? Like what's the what's the lever that we can pull?
They are scientists. Many of them are smart, scientifically minded people. If you have a proof, mathematical proof, there are proofs which work in other domains. Again, we tried publishing collections of limiting factors from every domain we could find: mathematics, legal, governance. It's just not a feasible thing to do. And I know Eliezer disagrees with me. He thinks if he had billions of dollars and a lot more time and smarter populace, he would get it done. But I challenged him to actually present that proof, and he also didn't produce one yet. So I think unless somebody delivers very soon, that's the state of the art. It's impossible to do.
It's impossible to have a proof, or it's impossible more generally to change people's minds?
No, I'm saying if we had a mathematical proof accepted universally by scientific community, by AI safety community, that it's impossible to control indefinitely advanced AI, then building it is just pure suicide mission. It's against personal self-interest, even for someone trying to control the world, get all the money. You're just not going to get what you expect to get out of it.
So, but you, just to clarify, you actually think that if a really brilliant mathematician tomorrow comes up with a proof that you can't control superintelligent AI, you really think that that would change the game board significantly?
I think the change would be if somebody can show that it's possible. We have multiple reasons to argue that it's impossible. We have many papers and multiple books already out. What I'm saying is no one was even able to challenge that claim with any rigor. People can say, oh, intuitively, I think maybe we can do it. Prove it. If you can, then hey, I can lower my PDUM and sleep better.
Right. So to clarify, you're just saying that other people owe us a proof that what they're building won't kill us, and you don't necessarily owe people a proof that it will kill us.
So by default, those who are creating a product or service have to guarantee its safety. That's a standard in any industry, right? It's not my job to prove that the airplane is dangerous or that a drug is dangerous. The drug company has to establish that it's creating a safe product. There is government verification of that steps. But in this space, we have a large safety community, all working and trying to control advanced AI. But there is zero reason to think that the problem is actually solvable.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Yeah, I was just trying to think, what can we realistically gain out of these kinds of formal proofs? Yeah, because I think, Max...
Well, I don't know. I think I saw your interview with Vitalik Buterin, and I don't think you presented it as like this is the state of the art. You were kind of trying to understand if he thinks it's solvable, unsolvable. Will we ever know? I think this is what we have right now. And again, unless someone comes out and shows, nope, that's wrong. This is the result. This is what we got. And it's not a bad result to argue with.
Yeah. Okay, well, now that you're personally very high visibility, you're getting on more podcasts, how does that affect your ability to make an impact? Have you noticed a difference?
It's hard to tell immediately. There is definitely a lot more requests coming in for consulting, for reviewing proposals people put in place in commercial settings. I am extremely time limited, so I obviously cannot say yes to 99% of those requests, and even filtering out what is crazy versus actually reasonable proposals is not so trivial. So there is a lot of opportunities in this space to kind of jump in and see, well, is what people suggesting actually valuable, or is this one of those let's make them love everyone type of proposals?
Right. So yeah, I mean, when you do that kind of consulting work, it reminds me of the other kinds of work people try to do, like, oh, I'm going to be a venture capitalist and I'm going to redirect my investment in whichever companies seem like they're on the safest direction. Do you feel like that has any hope of moving the needle, or it's just kind of people wishing that they could move the needle but not really being in the same ballpark?
Well, moving investments and starting new companies which seem safer is what got us into this mess in the first place. OpenAI was a product of this effective altruism goal for safe AI. Anthropic is exactly that. Oh, my company is not taking safety seriously. Let's start a new company and beat them by creating more capable AI faster. So far, it backfired terribly. If you can trace all these problems, you can trace them back to that exact movement and that idea, right?
That is true. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so those consulting gigs, bonus balloon for you. Yeah, those consulting gigs might not be the best way to move the needle here. Okay, and what have you seen with the quality of discourse from your fellow academics and intellectuals? Has that been evolving positively over the years?
Not so much quality, but at least the general acceptance of it as a reasonable topic to even discuss, to give talks on, to do research on. When I started, it was not even a topic. There was simply nothing. I had to literally name the field to something outside of friendly AI because that wasn't
friendly AI
accepted
was the
at the
original,
moment.
Yeah. Okay, and now it's something, but it's just something that other people still don't understand. They just know that they have to pay lip service to it.
There is a lot of kind of dilution. Under that same umbrella, people look at reducing bias, fighting unemployment. So it's not limited to the big problems, really existential risk and wars. So
Right.
we need to concentrate on it as the only really important issue to address in the next couple of years. Because if we can solve the hard problem, easy problems will fall. I'm not concerned about unemployment as much as I am concerned about no one being around.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think what you're describing, it sounds to me like ESG, like environmental, social, and governance, right? It's like when people are like, oh, we're going to make an impact because we're going to redirect our investments toward ESG companies. But even the definition of ESG, it's like, really, you just never invest in fossil fuel energy companies no matter what, but don't we still need some fossil fuels? Like it immediately got so complex, and it was just kind of like a worthless exercise as far as I'm concerned. Like I'm not personally a fan of ESG. Don't you feel like AI safety is just the next ESG now?
I don't have much background in this subfield, so I don't know, but like anyone who basically works for one of those companies right now is directly contributing to making a more capable AI. If you accept the argument, if you think those are systems which are dangerous, and if anyone builds it, everyone dies, then you're directly on that path. It doesn't matter if your company has a safety policy. So just stop doing it right now. Everyone should work on narrow systems. No one should be helping to build general superintelligence.
Right. Okay. Let me also run by you the two main mechanisms of impact that seem promising to me. So number one is getting the politicians scared. Eliezer explicitly mentions this one. They need to fear that tomorrow is not going to be as pleasant as today. Are you hopeful about potentially getting the leaders scared?
I'm always for personal self-interest. So if you can tell the President of the United States that he may lose control personally and something else will be in control instead, I think that's a powerful argument. I don't know how well he takes arguments about someone else getting hurt.
Right. Okay. And the other mechanism that I think is powerful is the grassroots protesting, right? Just getting people to realize, checking that box, building mutual knowledge of like, oh, this is a thing that we protest. This is a thing that we're worried about, like the PauseAI movement. We're going to have Holly Elmore on the show later. What do you think about that direction?
I like the idea in general. I like them. I supported them. I mentioned them on podcasts. But what I see is in my feed from San Francisco, I have a guy who's been fasting for 30 days to be healthy, and I have a guy who's been starving for 7 days in a protest. It doesn't have the impact.
Right. That's the thing about fasting. Some people do it for health reasons. Yeah. No, I mean, I hear you, right? And that's why somebody asked me, hey, Liron, are you going to go join the hunger strike? And I'm like, look, I support hunger strikes. Like, I think I support any kind of nonviolent protest, that legal nonviolent protest. The problem is just that because not many people are doing it yet, each person who joins is only having a tiny marginal impact. And then when I think about my own actions, I feel like I currently have other actions like doing this show that are higher on the margin, but I just wish a bunch of other people would do it. So there is kind of a little bit of like that Kickstarter problem.
Yeah, and we don't really know what the measure of impact is. You said a tiny little additional impact for each person starving. I haven't seen that study. I don't know if it's actually true.
The study about how much impact each individual person has.
Right, just being on a hunger strike in front of a company, does that actually make a difference for anyone? It
Right,
may
right.
very well, I just haven't seen the study.
All right, fair enough. All right, Roman, we'll go to the next guest. So just tell us what is your main call to action for the viewers?
If you are in a position of building more advanced AI, stop today. Excellent day to do that. Switch to building narrow tools. We have plenty of problems. Go cure a cancer or something.
All right, you heard it here first. There's so many good fields you guys could be working on. You really don't have to be working on building the AI. All right, Roman Yampolskiy, thanks for coming by. Great. All right, now before we bring on our next guest, I want to show you guys a video here. This is me and producer Ori going out on the streets of Saratoga Springs, New York, Main Street, America, a purple city. And we went out on the street and we found ordinary folks who had never heard of Eliezer Yudkowsky's arguments, but their initial reaction to the argument was actually more calibrated and more sane than what we get here in the tech echo chamber here on social media. Let's take a look.
Everybody needs to buy this book and be aware of what's going to happen with AI.
Do you want to talk to us? 2 minutes.
What are your names?
Jesse and Abby.
Jesse and Abby, do you worry that AI will become smarter and more powerful than humanity?
Yes,
I don't think it's going to become smarter. I think it's become ignorant, but it is going to take over.
It is going to take over. In how many years?
10.
10 years.
If that.
Okay, do you think more of these people walking by should be aware of this issue?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, well, there's a New York Times best-selling book that you can read. It's called If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies. Do you think people should pick up a copy?
What's it about?
It's about how building artificial intelligence is literally going to kill everybody in about 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so you personally think that we are all going to be dead in 5 years?
I think 10 years, but yes.
10 years. So you expect to be dead. Do
I
you?
don't think we're going to be dead, but
We're
think
going to be
that-
close to death.
I think it's almost going to be like a second government. Like we're going to be controlled by all these AI robots. And if we don't do what they say, we're going to have huge problems. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's worth spreading the word about this particular book?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
Buy this book, people.
All right, buy this book, people. So seriously, I mean, it is pretty shocking that people's default view is like, yeah, AI, I don't know. I'm not that excited about building it. And that's different from a lot of us tech heads. Like I am excited about building it, except I'm also scared. All right, now let's see. I'm reading a viewer comment here. Maybe dressing up and going on the street for advertising a book is the limit of cringe for me. Well, cringe. I mean, look, we got to break through the cringe barrier. What do you think moving the Overton window looks like, right? What does it look like? Think about, like in Japan, right? They're using bidets. They're using toilets that squirt water in your butt. In the US, we haven't gotten there yet, right? We're using dry toilet paper. Is it cringe to say that people should squirt water in their butt? This is how change happens. So we have to dress as the Grim Reaper and tell people that if anyone builds it, everyone dies. I got somebody in the waiting room. Who's this? Michael.
Yo,
Hey, Michael. Hey, John.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
I'm all set here. I have the balloons.
You got
How many
balloons, man. I got the book.
I was just saying, John, if you manage to crash, this will skyrocket the views.
I'm not gonna read it.
Nice.
I know.
All right, gentlemen. So
You're
this
right.
is
If I
going to go
take
by
one
in
for
a
the team
flash.
and put this car into a tree.
We basically have time for like 2 questions. So let's everybody say your piece. So John Sherman, I know you've read the book, you've been watching the media buzz. Give us your take. All right, John, your connection's bad, man.
Go to Michael.
All right, we'll go to Michael. All right, Michael, give us your overall take.
Yeah. So my thoughts on this is like Yudkowsky is the pioneering AI alignment researcher whose work on the potential for a runaway intelligence explosion and the existential risk posed by AI has been profoundly influential, effectively sparking the entire AI safety movement. And he's been writing and talking about it for like 20 years. And this book is perhaps the clearest, most accessible presentation of Eliezer's beliefs and the culmination of a quarter century of his developing and talking about them. So it may prove to be the most important book of our time. And I really hope governments around the world can recognize the risks and take collective and effective action, and really hope it's read by policymakers, journalists, researchers, and the general public.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that take. I don't think the viewers are surprised. Has anything surprised you about other people's reception?
I mean, I saw some reviews that were not particularly. I mean, I think it's just everyone has their own agenda, and there is also the thing is, even if someone is critical of the book, we should realize that there is no.
All right. Well, let's hold up. Let's let him finish this.
Yeah, so my thought was that because it's unfolding, AI is unfolding such breakneck speeds that there are no real pioneers. So even if someone has like a technical CV, it doesn't mean that they know what we're talking about, and it's just about. I mean, if anyone knows what they're talking about, it's Eliezer Yudkowsky and I don't know. Even though there were some critical reviews, I don't think they had too much weight with them. So it's that's my thought on that.
Nice. All right, ladies and gentlemen, introducing Doom Debates producer Ori Nagel. Ori, welcome back to Doom Debates.
Happy launch. What's up, everybody? Good to be on camera, in front of the camera. I'm usually behind the scenes. And I'm here with Liron at unofficial launch day headquarters near Albany, New York, in some city which I don't even know the name of. And
Saratoga Springs.
This should be a fun stream.
Yep, the name of the city
Saratoga
is Saratoga
Springs, that's the
New
one.
York. Now, just one note, Ori, I know we're actually in the same house right now, but it seems like I've got all the good Wi-Fi because I'm looking at the YouTube and I feel like you're grainy and I'm crisp.
Oh, really? Yeah, everyone's loading slowly for me right now.
Yeah. So you might want to try a different room. User Fiend Poshleen is saying that the superintelligence has hacked the streaming servers. That's still what I'm thinking. Every time, like the other day when my camera stopped working, I'm like, is this it? Is this the day that the superintelligence has got, GPT-6, the developer build of GPT-6 has gone rogue in the data center, made it all the way to my computer and decided to make my camera stop working so I won't do Doom Debates. And then after some debugging, it turned out to be a bad micro USB cable, but you never know.
But strictly speaking, it's a warning shot, because if it was really super intelligent, it would have succeeded. But nothing is stopping you, man. It's just you can try, but it cannot stop you.
Yeah. So Ori, man, talk about being the producer, because you were in the first episode a year ago, and then you worked for Control AI. You did a bunch of PR for them. You've been in the AI risk PR space for a long time. And then for the last few months, you've been full-time Doom Debates behind the scenes. So I think everybody wants to know, what is it like being behind the scenes of Doom Debates?
Yeah, sure. Well, is my audio still laggy? Because
it is kind of laggy, yeah. Okay, if you want to pop off, you can tell us later. How about that?
Yeah, sure. It's probably going to be crappy.
All right, so this is a cliffhanger.
Right,
people want a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I got to tell you guys, it's so amazing. You won't believe what it's like to be a producer.
Dun, dun, dun.
Nice.
Stay tuned for season 2 of Doom Debates. Nice. All right. Well, this is probably a good a time as any to get to our next guest. You're going to see a lot of guest switching during the show. We packed the schedule to an insane degree. All right, Michael. So thanks a lot for dropping by. You can see me and Michael every Sunday on Warning Shots. You can even go look us up right now. Just go to YouTube and search Warning Shots. And I guess maybe throw in my name. I don't know how popular of a name that is, Warning Shots. But anyway, me, Michael, and John Sherman, we all do Warning Shots where we talk about what's the latest thing to drop that should make us scared about superintelligence. And, as a good Bayesian, sometimes I say that something should make us less worried, but mostly we get more and more worried. Yeah.
Just before I draw, because I went to the liquor, because it's a party. I bought some liquor. I went to the liquor store. I bought this. I think it's quite fitting vodka. I don't know if you see, if you can, it's visible. It's quite funny. So yeah, I'm just gonna enjoy it while watching the esteemed guests for the
party. That's great. Okay, right. Cheers, man. All right,
cheers. Take care.
See you next time, Michael.
Yep. Bye.
All right, let's welcome our next guest. Let's see, I've got her in the studio right now. Please welcome Liv Boeree. Hey, Liv.
Hello.
Hey,
hi.
Nice to meet you. All right, let me tell the viewers a little bit about your background. Liv is an astrophysicist by training, but she's best known for being a poker champion, philanthropist, guitarist, TED speaker, science communicator, and host of the amazing Win-Win podcast. She's a rare mainstream voice who gives attention to problems and solutions to society's pressing yet frequently overlooked concerns like animal welfare, population decline, and now the risk of artificial intelligence. Does that all sound right, Liv?
Roughly, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and just to highlight, I know you're pretty fresh off. You recently won a poker tournament, and then you took much of the winnings and donated it to welfare for factory farmed pigs. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just pigs, but it was the pledge I made the night before the tournament started. I used to play poker professionally, and then I quit from playing, full time 5-6 years ago. So I basically not played, and so I was like, oh, I'm going to go down and play this big tournament just for fun with no expectations. I'm pretty bad. I thought I'd be pretty bad at poker given all the time off I'd had. So I was like, I'll donate 20% to the best anti-factory farming charities, and then I go and have this huge score. So it was a nice little surprise. But yeah, I've been interested in sort of a lot of the cause areas that sort of at least once upon a time fell under the effective altruism umbrella since I've been into that stuff since 2015, which is where I got interested in AI safety. I remember hearing the arguments for it all the way back at an EAG conference in, I think, San Francisco 2015, and was like, this makes sense. I think even Eliezer was there speaking, or maybe it was Nate I met. I can't remember who, but I just remember them taking me through the arguments, and I was like, I would love to, I hope they're wrong. And yet, I have yet to hear someone give more compelling arguments against them.
And how long ago was this that you first got informed about these arguments?
I think, as I said, it was around 2015. 2015,
okay, all right. So coming up on a decade of being doom pilled, as they say. And
I don't like that phrase, doom pilled, because I feel like it's kind of it gets misused and is used almost as a slur to discredit anyone who has any kind of concern about sort of rapidly propagating technologies, or anyone who's concerned about the sort of current trajectory. And also, I don't think we are necessarily doomed. I think we are in a very precarious position, but I don't. It can almost, if you use that term, at least I find if I use that term too much, it almost makes me kind of just want to lie down and die. And that's not what we should be doing. But, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Although there's a lot of people making different comments about the terminology, and I will definitely take that into account. All right, so let's talk about your endorsement for the book. You're one of
also a good selling point, though.
Right, exactly. And I will say the .com was available. So you don't want to neglect that consideration for my show, Doom Debates.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're getting a lot of really important people. You're having really important conversations with really, on a very narrow topic in a way that no one else is really doing. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And the fact that nobody else is really doing it, it's like, what the hell, right? Why did I have to come along to do it? It's like society is broken. Yeah,
it's weird. It's like one of the biggest topics, arguably the biggest topic of our time. And it's getting a millionth of the attention that it probably should be.
Yeah, totally. All right, yeah, I'm glad you think so. So let's look at your endorsement. You wrote, "We don't know for sure what's going to happen when superintelligence arrives, but I'm glad we at least have this book raising the tough questions that need to be asked while the rest of the industry buries its head in the sand." Elaborate on that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting how, there are definitely some people within the AI industry expressing concern about the various dangers, although, and I do think it's true that there are so many different dangers that it's a mistake to perhaps just only focus on one. I think it's, the bad actor problem or the current harms and so on. I think it's different people will be more inclined to think about or be concerned by different ones, and that's fine. But when it comes to sort of specifically the extinction risk problem, the deeper alignment problem and the fact that people are openly trying to build superintelligence, there's so little conversation about it. The only real tech leader who was talking about it extensively was Elon, although now he seems to be trying to build it himself. So that one is interesting. But the rest of the industry, they just either act like it doesn't exist, or if it does exist, they sort of talk in circles around it. I mean, there are definitely some tech leaders who are, I know internally they are trying to solve it. Like, I think they are quite concerned, most of them, but they won't talk about it openly because obviously it hurts their bottom line and it might cause them road bumps. And it's surprising to me how actively well, it's not surprising, but it's disappointing how actively they are fighting against any kind of sensible regulation.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I talked to Eliezer, he was saying that these AI companies are just at the point where they're kind of evaporative cooling, where people who are away from the central belief are like leaving. And we've seen that. We've seen a pretty big exodus of all the people that he and I thought were qualified to work on these kind of safety problems. Do you agree with Eliezer's analysis that the people left are not acknowledging or even aware or understanding of what the hardest parts of the problem are?
I'm not sure I am sufficiently qualified to answer that with any confidence, because I haven't been paying attention to who is still there. I mean, I have seen obviously a lot of the best people have left. That said, I mean, there are still, it's not so much that they all leave, it's just they go to work at different places and they're all moving around. There definitely was a big exodus from OpenAI, right, of the most safety-minded people. There are definitely still a few people there who I think have their intentions in the right place. But I don't know. It's probably not the question I'm best qualified to answer.
All right. How about this? We got a question from the viewers. Sean asks, Liv, what do you think we should do as people outside the immediate sphere?
Well, it seems to be that the world runs on memes. And we are increasingly devolving into sort of symbolism and quick digestible art forms. So if you are someone who is good at making memes or like good at hacking the internet and people's limbic systems, then I would recommend leaning into that more because there are a few accounts out there. I don't always agree with everything AI safety memes that account posts, but by and large, the posts that person makes are good. They're good at making memes and they're actually making an impact. Like they're getting people to understand these concepts. Sometimes people just need a cartoon to understand something. So anything, any art form that appeals to you that can raise awareness of this, because you're in the attention sphere has never been more competitive. So putting your brain power into ways of either, out-competing all the other memes through conventional memes or by coming up with entirely new sort of ways of getting attention that obviously, you have to be careful, don't go and do something destructive. I'm very ambivalent on the topic of protesting because I think in some ways there are like icky aesthetics around protesting. It became a sort of associated with like annoying people, and this is too, or not so much annoying, but uneducated annoying people who are just like they're like having a moral panic about something, and this causes like the thing is most of the people who are concerned about AI safety are far from that. Like they're very thoughtful people, very like they've read up on this stuff incredibly deeply. So I wouldn't want the AI safety community to get tarred with that sort of brush as the same as like people who go and just, graffiti their slogan. This idea of slogans in general. Slogans are, I feel an ick whenever I hear a slogan, even if it's a cause I really, really care about and I'm aligned to. But maybe I'm not the type of person you're trying to appeal to. So at the same time, protests can be incredibly effective. So, that's why I'm ambivalent about it. Probably do more. I mean, given that everyone is protesting these days anyway, and AI, as I said, like AI X risk is getting far less attention than it should be getting, then probably people should be going out and protesting. But I think beyond that, like getting speaking to giving politicians a hard time about it. If some of my work I've been doing in anti-factory farming stuff, some of the organizations I've been funding are ones who will go and do corporate pressure campaigns. because it's actually, you know, it's these, in the case of factory farming, it's the corporations who are the ones who are actually doing the horrific practices, right? And ultimately there are members of the board who are making these decisions, or like, you know, putting their fingers in the air and sort of going along with whatever the CEO says. Those are real people, and it's possible to find out their names, and, you know, obviously again, must always be within the law and within the realms of reasonability, but like making them a little bit more, you know, I think if you're making decisions that can affect the entire outcome of the world, you don't get to remain anonymous. And so corporate pressure campaigns, I think, are probably being underutilized.
Yeah, pressure campaigns. I mean, so I agree with what you're saying. I guess my only request would be if you could consider saying this kind of stuff like more confidently and boldly, because you and I are kind of in this niche where we've got one foot in the nerdiverse, right? Like we're talking to like very nerdy people, very well-considered people who are balancing all these deep thoughts, and they don't want to go out on a limb. They don't want to misrepresent themselves, as you say, right? They don't want to hold up a protest sign that only has like 5 words on it. They need like a giant footnote. Okay, but you and I are also, once in a while, we're doing something that's getting, you know, 100,000, 1 million views, you more so than me, but we're straddling these two worlds. And I think it's kind of our job to help move the Overton window, to, you know, to break through the cringe and just be like, nope, we're doing this now.
Yeah, you might be absolutely right. Maybe it is. I think like there's certainly so much energy out there. There's so much disquiet amongst the general public around AI. It's not necessarily about the extinction risk problem, but I don't think it would be that hard to get a social movement going, particularly if you make it around.
Because we've been trying for a little while.
Well, no, but you have to make it around the more common problems that are affecting people's lives right now. The thing is that if you can, for example, like it's presumably going to help the extinction risk, or at least the arms race problem, the fact that like there's no Moloch's purely at the wheel right now. There's no like real checks and balances or anything to like slow down the race. If some regulation comes along that, for example, makes it so that these companies can't be quite so cavalier with people's data or all these other things, that's also going to throw a spanner in the works on the other thing. But the point is that to get the public behind your cause, you have to make it something that is really emotionally salient for them. And the things that are emotionally salient for them are, for example, seeing their children being radicalized by algorithms online, or that they're losing their jobs.
Unemployment,
unemployment. All of these sort of more near-term issues, they're not anywhere near as big a problem as X risk, but if you want to get the public behind you, you need to have it be something that they can, and as you said, like the idea of like X risk is probably a little bit too abstract for most people, because they just can't quite explain they can't fully grok the nature of the alignment problem, or even if they do, it's really hard for them to explain it to someone else.
Okay, by the way, I haven't had you on my show, so I haven't had a chance to ask, do you personally have a PDoom?
I mean, it's somewhere between 5 and 99%.
Okay, so 5 to 99. So we've ruled out 99.9.
It's a hot mess of a probability distribution. But personally, all of those are unacceptable. I don't think 5% is acceptable. I don't think. Certainly nothing above like 15% is acceptable. So I'm really unclear. What I have been thinking about more though, and it's not my concept, it's actually my husband Igor's. He's been asking people, instead of asking them their PDoom, he's been asking, what is your P normal? In other words, what is your probability that the next 10 years of development will go at the rate of change will go at approximately the same rate as the last 10 years. Right. Because I think that is something that people can just like grok a little bit more easily, actually gets them thinking. And for me, like my opinion that things will be sort of roughly normal in the same way that they've been over the last 10 years to the next 10 years is very, very low. Like certainly under 20%, probably 10%. Things seem to be getting more and more chaotic. The rate of change is going so fast, not just in AI, but in all these sort of other interconnected technologies as well. And plus AI will affect everything else that's going to be making life crazy. So that's a question. Sorry, not to fully answer your question properly, but like that, I thought it would be something you might appreciate.
No, totally. And I don't even think 5 to 99% is that bad of an answer to what's your PDUM. I personally say 50%, but I also think 10 to 90% means the same thing as me when I say 50%, because it's not like a confident 50%.
Right.
I think
my median is,
right. And we both think that anybody who says like 0.5%, it's like, really, how did you get 199 to 1 odds ratio? Like, really, you? And they would point the finger at us, be like, why are you so confident? It's like, what? You're the one who's 199 to 1.
Yeah. For what it's worth, like I can understand why Nate and Eliezer are, effectively rounding to 100%, because like they do have a very compelling argument. I deeply hope they're wrong. And I, at the other end, like when you have like the Andreessens of the world and so on saying, oh, it's well under 1%. Again, I wish it was true. I hope they are correct, but I have yet to see a compelling argument why it is. But yeah, I would say that, I can totally understand why their numbers are so high, and Roman too, people like that. But I don't know, there's weirdly, some part of me just kind of wants to reject the question, because it's not an objective probability that there isn't impact. There's so many contingencies and things that can be impacting it, that I kind of, some weird part of me, even though I am a poker player and I love probabilities, like just kind of rejects the question, because it is just so unknown, and there are so many things that could be done to nudge things in different directions.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. That's a common answer. I think that's reasonable. I'll just add that personally, even though you could say I'm also 10 to 90%, I personally feel like if I really was only 5%, I don't think that I would make it such a big issue. Even technically, it's like, yeah, you don't want a 5% chance of the world ending. Yeah, you should fight that. But I just don't think that it would be my own obsession if I really thought it was only 5 or even 10%. Because then I'm like, just bet on the 90, whatever, 9 to 1, Hail Mary, even better than Hail Mary. But I really just think that it's higher. I think that's my only issue.
Yeah, then that's reasonable. Yeah, if you force me to narrow my horribly wide range down, I would be comfortable narrowing it to somewhere between 40 to 35 to 65, something like that, or 75.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm
basically kind of like, I mean, I'm not bipolar about it in that most days I'm extremely concerned. Let's put it that way. It's not like I'm often getting news and being like, oh, actually, no, we're going to be okay. It's almost getting more into a question of like faith and almost religiosity around it, which I don't think is even that misplaced of a way of thinking when it comes to this topic, because it is so all encompassing. But yeah, it's difficult, but it's safe to say I am extremely, extremely concerned, and under current conditions, I think we are. I'm deeply concerned about the idea of superintelligence being created under current conditions, because Moloch is currently running the show, there's maybe one of the tech leaders who I think is really thinking about this well, and even that's, they're all beholden to their corporate incentives. And or personal selfish incentives.
Yep. Well, you're definitely doing your part. You're endorsing the book. You're being very public about your PDUM, saying that this is a big problem, and you're mitigating all the character assassinations. People like to paint with a broad brush and be like, nobody intelligent, nobody that people respect is taking the doom argument seriously. And you're like, well, yeah, at least I'm somebody who is, right. So like the more lives we have, the better. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, no one pissed me off more than the EACs when they started like shitting on the AI safety community and like saying the thing that really is just so ridiculous and galling is the argument they make that Oh yeah, people like Eliezer and co. Their own in all the AI safety people. They're just doing it for the money. It's like, you
Yeah,
think,
book royalties, man. That's where
yeah,
where the money is.
Nate, like Eliezer's been thinking about AI since 2001. He could be like, or Nate Soares could go and make hundreds of millions if he went into AI capabilities. So easily. He could have been doing it years ago. Like, if he makes a few like, what is book sales going to do these days? It's like anything under than, like, it's like orders of magnitude difference. And that alone speaks volumes. Meanwhile, the people who are like detracting from these arguments are the ones who are actually making bank, like working on AI capabilities. So it's so screwed up that they make those arguments. And I just don't like seeing, that definitely kind of radicalized me against the EAC movement when they started making those arguments. It's like, okay, I can't take, you're not serious people. You're just doing meme warfare and saying things to fight your own little corner.
Exactly right. I'm sure Eliezer Yudkowsky would make more as a level 1 engineer at Google than he's pulled in over the years as machine intelligence.
So much money doing any of that stuff. They could have been doing it for years, but they didn't, because they actually have, whether or not you believe in their values, they are consistent with their values, and they've made huge personal sacrifices for that. And so I respect them enormously for that.
Great. All right, Liv Boeree, thanks so much for coming by, and hope to see you coming on my show sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me.
Have a good one.
Hi.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the hunger strike. You guys know the hunger strike that's been going on. We've got Guido Reichstatter is doing it, some more people from Stop AI, and we have somebody with us today who's been part of the hunger strike. He ended up having to eject a little bit early, but I respect what he's done so far, and I'm looking forward to talk to him. Please welcome Michael Trazzi. Michael, how's it going? Hold on, Michael, I'm not seeing your video, not hearing your audio. Okay, well, in the meantime, I see.
Yeah,
hey, Michael.
is this working now?
Yes.
Yeah. It's been really surreal to like watch the stream on YouTube and then you making the noise and then having like a 10 seconds lag. It's great. It's great to be talking after Max Tegmark, Yampolskiy, and Liv, Emmett, and talk to the two of them. A lot of things to answer here, but I'm sure you have questions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So first question. So you did the hunger strike for 7 days. What was the first thing that you ate after your fast?
Yeah, so actually I'm very lucky to be, supported by a bunch of friends. We came to the protest and I was sleeping there and we looked at the medical results together on, whether I should continue the strike when the doctors were telling me to really stop, and we were looking at the risk of dying overnight or the risk of dying if I continue the strike for like a week. And at some point we decided to, level up my glucose levels to like not be in a risk of danger. So the first thing I had was like apple juice with water. And then a little bit later, a little bit of bread with honey to, level up the sugar. But I think for the next 2 days, I think I mostly had a lot of carbs, and right now I'm eating more protein and stuff and more normal stuff.
Nice. So by the way, so Guido and one or two other guys, they're still fasting. Isn't that getting kind of crazy? Like, what if this was like day 14 without any food? Are they going to be like in life-threatening danger, or what's going on there?
Yeah, so I think it depends on a lot of different factors. I think Guido has been doing it for like 2 weeks now. I'm pretty sure he's going to be doing for at least 30 days. I keep going in front of the DeepMind office every day with Dennis. I was here 2 hours today, 4 hours yesterday, and he's doing fine. He's going strong. It does look way cleaner now than it looked 10 days ago, of course. But I think we have people like checking on people's health. There's like a doctor who just passed for the first time in 10 days. A doctor passed in front of Dennis today. It was like, "Hey, are you okay?" So I think maybe there's something going on where people are starting to get worried and starting to make sure we're in like good health or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little confusing because they're only doing electrolytes and water, but like if somebody doesn't eat for like 28 days, don't they die?
No, I think our body, I think one surprising thing that happened for me was that, realizing that our body are like surprisingly resilient. And you can run without food for like a long time and not have like.
Wait, how long? 2 months?
I think the record is probably like 300 days, and the guy was like 240 kilograms. And so it's just like if you have doctors checking on you and you eat vitamins and stuff, or like just electrolytes. I think, if you just keep on burning the fat, you can continue for a very long time.
Really? So if you get vitamins and electrolytes, and you can just burn your own fat for like multiple months.
Yeah, depending on your personal body. I think I know my body didn't really go well with it, but I think some other people might go for much longer. I've listened to a bunch of like the points from Yudkowsky, sorry, not Yudkowsky, but Yampolskiy on why the hunger strike might not be impactful. So I might just have like a couple of points of like why I think it's impactful. But if you have other questions, I'm happy to answer as well.
Yeah, gotcha. Let me tell viewers a little bit more about you. And also, I think you know my producer and the co-host of the party, Ori Nagel. Well, okay, bonus balloon drop right there. All right, let me let Ori Nagel in. Hey, Ori.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
What's up, everybody? Yeah, so you guys know each other. So let me tell the viewers about Michael really quick. Michael is a podcaster, social media creator, and documentary filmmaker. He was just fasting. We talked about that outside of Google DeepMind. And you did the fast because you wanted to urge Demis Hassabis to treat AGI development with the gravity it deserves. And your documentary was about SB 1047, correct?
Yeah. So I spent like 8 months doing a documentary on SB 1047, a California bill that was like vetoed last year. And this year we now have SB 53, which is the same thing happening right now. And it's on the desk of Governor Newsom. So if you want to, take some action, you could message your governor if you're in California.
Hell yeah, that's right. And I know PauseAI US and Control AI, they're putting up web pages. I mean, I'm interested in like the most streamlined flow to get people activated, because now that there's actual political things we can do, I want to do it, but I'm used to software as a service. I'm used to streamlined workflows,
Yeah, I don't know what's the best way to streamline. I'm going to go back to the hunger strike. I think the thing that gets people to act is having a leader, and I think one thing we're like lacking a little bit in the movement is a leader that can motivate people to do things and inspire people. I think we do have Yudkowsky writing books, but I don't think he strikes as like a natural leader. He's not like the Gandhi of AI safety or someone people can get behind. So. Yeah, I think that one of the goals of the hunger strike was really to just like inspire people to like take bolder actions. And in July, I think Ori and I were like in front of DeepMind for like a PauseAI event that like lasted like half an hour to an hour in front of the office. And I was thinking about it like, this is not enough to put pressure in front of the companies, and this is not enough for people to take pause or like AI risk seriously. And so I was thinking about this for like a couple of months. I was like, yeah, we need to do something every day, more engaged. And I was talking to people from PauseAI about it, and when I saw Guido's tweets on Friday, so 10 years ago, I was like, yeah, he's doing it. He is doing the thing. he is going out there. And so the only way I can support this is to do the same thing in front of DeepMind. So then it becomes like an international movement, multi-labs, multi-countries. And Yampolskiy was saying like, yeah, maybe there's no impact, but like, even if there was no impact, and I know there is because of the newspaper, journalistic interviews and impact from like inside of the labs, the employees talking about it and stuff. But even if there wasn't, just like the fact that I can inspire like one person to do the same, it is enough to like spread the nuclear reaction.
Yeah, I'm a fan of what you're doing, and it's so easy for people in our group to just start criticizing. That's everybody's natural reaction. We all like to argue, we all like to nitpick. I don't think that should be the first go-to thing right now. I think the first go-to thing that I should say in reaction to this is you're clearly creating positive impact. Like what you're doing is, in my mind, unambiguously net positive. I can think of some nitpicks, but I just think it's so great that you're being the first one to do it. I wish more people would do it. And let me also say, I like your ask. Your ask is basically like Demis Hassabis. All you're asking him to do, if I understand correctly, is say that he will pause things if other people pause things, right? Or what needs to happen? Like he's not even committing that much.
Yeah. So I guess like Guido is still asking something like, pause AI development right now and, advocate for a pause, put all your resources into advocating for a pause. I think that was like kind of like unrealistic. So I was talking to my friends and I was like, yeah, what's something Demis Hassabis could just like accept to do? What's like in a good world, what's something that could like be like the tiniest step that could bring us like closer to something good? And yeah, Demis accepting to pause releasing new models, new frontier models, if everyone else was to pause, then that's like a first step towards coordination, because like if everyone agrees to this, not everybody dies.
Right.
Really, like
If anyone agrees to the treaty, then everyone lives.
everyone lives, and yeah, I guess the question is always like, yeah, but like, what about China? What about like smaller companies? How do you enforce it? But yeah, if everyone agrees to this, the big lab, then the countries can get to a 3 and then like enforce this. And some people say like, yeah, but we cannot pose now. But I'm like, this is something for the future. If we can build future coordination, so then when the models get very powerful, and we know we can study them, well enough, then I think it might take months, it might take years, but we can spend some time doing research. Like OpenAI has in their charter, like if someone is closer than us to AGI, and AGI is 2 years away, then we could like merge forces. So yeah, something like that, but like for every big lab, I think would be really good.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that would be great. If I think that clause, many people believe that OpenAI wouldn't follow through with that clause at this point. But one thing that was really interesting about your protest that I appreciated was that you were doing these daily updates, and you were saying you talked to people like Google DeepMind, at Meta, at the other AI companies, and they were saying that they had the same sentiments that you did, which is pretty surprising actually, because if you have the same sentiments, why are you working there? But I think, could you tell us a little bit about some of those conversations and what you learned from them?
Yeah. So I think Yampolskiy and Liv were like looking at the Twitter feed and looking at the reactions, and they didn't really want to mix like the AI safety movement with something that was a bit controversial. But when you're actually like on the street talking to employees and in person to people on the street, and people are like really supportive. And I think it's because there's like a censorship on the internet from people at the labs that they can't really publicly say they support something like this. But like in person, the people are just like way more reasonable. They're way more like articulate. Even people were like pretty skeptical. They will like patiently debate you for a while. And so the scenario we have is like we're sitting right in front of the office of Google DeepMind. People cannot look away when they get out. We have the signs, and like 50 meters. I don't know how many feet it's in American, but we have like the Meta office, and people like walk by from the tube, and they go to to Meta, and the Meta employees they don't give a fuck, because they're just like they're not they won't get fired from talking to us, right? So they're like, oh yeah, why only DeepMind? We're also under race. Please include us. Or yeah guys, I think it's great what you're doing. It's very dangerous. And so we've got like so many employees talking to us from different labs, and I think it's just interesting to see all the different typology of people who care about this.
Yeah. Hey guys, I got some breaking news.
Yeah, go for it.
I cut in here. So today is book launch day, and one of the things we wanted to do on this live stream is just see how things are going, how mainstream is the book going. And so I want to report that there is a Barnes & Noble posted by Rob Bensinger from Miri. There's a Barnes & Noble where the book is currently featured at the very top of the new and notable display.
I mean, okay, we'll take it. We'll take it. We got to take the wins that we can, guys.
The unexpected journey. Bill O'Reilly confronting evil. Get out of here.
My understanding is this was a Barnes and Nobles in a small town in Idaho.
I don't know which one that is. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that's great.
If everyone buys it, everyone leaves.
There we go. Converse. Let's see.
Have you guys read the book?
Michael, just to be explicit, you do endorse the book, correct?
I do endorse the book. I think it's like, I guess like I'm not like 100% sure that like if we build for intelligence, everyone dies. I know there's something in the book that says with current technology with current understanding, then everyone dies. I think that's mostly correct. I think we need way more understanding. We need like months or years of studying. I think like if we just continue and we have like weeks or like a month of studying super intelligence, maybe I'm like at 10% of us surviving. If we have like years, I'm probably like more optimistic, maybe like 50-50 or something like that. So I think I'm not like completely doomish, but I think with current understanding, if we continue the race and we don't have like a 6 months pause or something like this, I think we're near the end.
I think that's a meaningful statement to hear from you, because you yourself have, you studied AI, right? Or you worked as an AI developer. So it's not that you're just coming at it from out of nowhere as an activist, right? I mean, you have credentials and experience in this field.
Well, okay. So I've studied AI, and I've also tried to do like AI safety research and re-implemented papers. Actually, like in 2019, I was implementing a paper from DeepMind, working with DeepMind engineers. So I think it's kind of funny, like now to come back in front of the office when in 2019, Chen Leg would come to the meetings, and when I was at like the Future of Humanity Institute, and we'd like talk about research, and now I'm like messaging him and messaging Dennis, trying to get him to agree to something. But at the same time, I think the models have evolved a lot, since I was actually doing research. I think current models are much more based around language models and post-verbal training, and I haven't been studying to the extent that I would want to study like how do things actually work. And I think if you're not like inside of the lab pushing the frontier, it's quite hard to know where things are. But yeah, I guess from basic arguments, I think the main argument of like it's very hard to control an AI that like self-improves, or that is smarter, like that's most smarter than a human, or like it's really hard to control an acceleration of like AI R&D. I think it's really hard to beat that argument. And you don't need to be like an AI researcher or an AI expert to see that argument being true.
Nice, man. All right. Well, we've been asking the guests about the call to action and the leverage points. I think I know that you would recommend having people do more of what you just did, right? More of that nonviolent protest and public action. And I mean, I hope you say, I think that's a great idea. But what's your call to action?
My call to action is, I don't know how many people are watching this, maybe like 100. If you live in San Francisco, or if you live in London, tomorrow morning, you go in front of XAI or Meta, and you inspire people to take bolder actions and make this anger strike something in front of 3 labs, 4 labs. And I think there's a massive potential there. There's a lot of news coverage, and I want to see this becoming even bigger. But before everything, please buy the book.
Hell yeah! All right, everybody, please buy the book.
Thank you so much. And
Michael Trazzi, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
All right, keep up the good work. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we're just about time for the next guest here. I'll wait for him to come to the live stream. In the meantime, Ori, how's it going? I bet people are waiting to hear from you a little bit more.
Good. Yeah, I finally got on the live stream. I was on the stream for about 30 seconds before, and apparently the upload rate was crap. But now I'm here. And I've been working as a producer with Liron on Doom debates for, I don't know. I mean, were we coming up on like 4 months? I mean, we just started it. And I mean, it's been quite a ride. We're on our way to the trying to increase P 100,000 subscribers. That's the goal.
Exactly right. Yep, we'll definitely get there. Yeah, Ori, this is a very dynamic environment working at Doom Debates Incorporated. One day you're networking with the top scientists and professors in the world. The other day you're getting up on that ladder and helping me with party decorations.
That is correct. You have to be a jack of all trades if you're a creator. I mean, you make videos, you post. I mean, who would have thought all the work that happens behind the scenes? But yeah.
And Ori and I go back a very long time. We've had different phases of our friendship, but it's cool that we now have this mutual interest of avoiding doom from superintelligent AI.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. I know that our previous guest, Liv Boeree, was like, "Oh, I don't like the term doom," and to say that you're doom pilled. But I would say I think it's safe to say that you doom pilled me. But it's not just me. I think a lot of people who are around you, because you're consistent. If anything, right? The way you are on Doom Debates is also how you are in your personal life. And the way you
one track mind.
Sure. And you know, that man on the street segment and those interviews that we did, I mean, those are the pressing ideas in your head. And so you know, for you, it's like, how are people missing this? And that's what you would communicate when we would hang out and you're talking to other friends. And it's like, you make a very strong case. And so I have been early to this. I mean, we were ready to go when ChatGPT came out. You know, you had so much information, whereas other people were just coming to this. And yeah, as a result of my being an early adopter, if you will, of being aware of these topics, I mean, I've now helped raise awareness and raise more attention to these issues. And now we're doing it at Doom Debates Incorporated to try and, I mean, in my opinion, I think what the show is one episode after another to show you that the emperor has no clothes. I mean, even as we go I mean, these guests, these are like the people that we have right now on this stream. I mean, what is a better set of people who are concerned about AI safety and on board with this book? It's people who have endorsed the book, and it's like herding cats. I mean, totally. So it's just you know, it's an emperor has no clothes party, and that's what, you know, that's, I think, what we're drawing attention to. It's important, but we can also make it engaging and try and build a community so we can make some kind of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, good points. And, you know, speaking of being ready for this, I just remember that moment, 2023, when GPT-4 came out, and it was that 1-2 punch. First, we had ChatGPT, which was like GPT 3.5. That was, I think, November 2022, man, a long time ago. And then early 2023, GPT-4 came out. And that was like the COVID moment. It gave me that similar perspective, you know, that like stomach in the air moment, you know, like on the roller coaster, like, you know, free fall moment of like, man, anything could happen from here. You know, people's heads were spinning. And that's when you have like 1 week later, you get Eliezer Yudkowsky giving the TED talk, or I would have tweets that would just like go viral day after day being like, hey, look, there's this guy at OpenAI named Paul Christiano, who's at OpenAI at the time, or like he used to be at OpenAI leading their safety efforts. And he says his PDoom is like more or less 50%. And I would be like tweeting this news that we'd been holding in for a while, and it would go viral every time because everybody was like first like swiveling their head to look at it. But now, you know, fast forward to 2025, things feel like they've stabilized a little bit, even though in my opinion, they're like exponentially growing. And we've just kind of lost that momentum of people being willing to look.
Yeah. I mean, I remember actually those moments, you know, you'd message me like, oh my God, ChatGPT could just do this. This is insane. It's blowing my mind. I mean, it's just instant dread in a way. I couldn't appreciate it, I think, the way that you did and you have. But yeah, I mean, I remember those moments. I mean, it's amazing. I've seen this written about before. It's like the effect where you get used to something so fast, right? I mean, I was in my first self-driving car, which is in some ways a more visceral experience than ChatGPT. I mean, I had my first self-driving car experience like 6 months ago. And it was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then I did it again, you know, a month later. And I'm like, all right, this is cool. Like, I'm not even paying attention to the road. And
exactly,
it's so wild. I mean, I always like when you ask, you have a good analogy. You're like, consider what it would be like to go back in history. And like, let's look forward 200 years. I mean, and it's insane. You got like a video screen in front of you. You could talk to someone halfway across the world in real time. I mean, it's the kind of stuff of fantasy. You know, but that's the world that we're in right now. And so, yeah, it's, you know, science fiction is reality, and it's, you know, we can just get used to something so quickly, but it's still incredible, like, that we have this issue and still people aren't addressing it the way it seems to deserve. That's why we're that's why we're doing this launch party now and trying to raise awareness for this book, because this is a really good this is a good a good opportunity to do that. I mean, because the book says it in such a direct and clear way. It's like hard to ignore. I mean, what grinds my gears, I guess, is the people in denial. You know, it's like Liv was saying that she the people that bother her are like the EACs who are on the other side of the political spectrum here. But yeah, I mean, it's so surprising to me to see some of the critical reviews who are like this is just fantasy. You know, like what? Did you read it?
The
I
New York
mean,
Times,
what?
Yeah. Oh my God, the New York Times review. Forgot that Stephen March. So bad. Yeah. If we got a minute, looks like a guest is being delayed. So yeah, we can let's go dunk on that. Yeah, if you want to pull it up.
Okay. Yeah, I'll pull it up. Yeah. Let me find it here.
Yeah, I'll get my criticism started. So it was basically a review where the guy's biggest beef with the book is like, yeah, this book is so flimsy. If anyone builds it, everyone dies. Their definitions are so vague. They don't even tell you what it means for the AI to want something. What does that mean, want? All they say is that it means that like it has a goal and it like takes actions that achieve that goal. Like it's like takes flexible actions to achieve that goal. And I'm like, yeah, that's the effing definition, dude. Like that's a solid definition. You can do a lot with that definition.
Do you see my screen? I put it on the screen.
Yeah, I do. Okay, great. Let's see.
And let's see his name too. What was his
Stephen
name?
March, right?
AI bots or us? Who will end humanity first? That was the article. And then Stephen March, yeah. And then it was about want. Here. This was the section.
Yeah. Okay. So learning to want is typical. This is like the meatiest part of his review, and it's crap. He's saying, the authors continue with an inexcusably lazy explanation. Takes one to know one. Stephen March. About whether a chess computer wants to win at chess. The authors then continue. We'll describe wanting to win. In saying this, we're not commenting one way or the other on whether a machine has feelings. Rather, we need some word to describe the outward winning behavior, and want seems closest. Yes, anytime you see a system where, let's say it's like a self-driving car, but any obstacle that you place in front of it, it somehow manages to overcome it, like it goes into the third dimension to overcome it, or it uses psychology, right? It uses psychological manipulation to somehow always get its way and steer toward the outcome, steer around anything. At that point, yeah, you can throw away the word want, but there is a phenomenon here, right? There is a goal seeking. Just call it goal seeking, whatever you want to call it. It's clearly a crisp phenomenon. Like it's not hard to draw a boundary around this phenomenon. And yes, there's going to be gray areas, but as far as definitions go, this guy really shouldn't have a beef with this definition.
You know, okay, a few things. One, should try to message the next guest and see if he has it. You might want to try DMing him.
Yeah, I did DM the next guest. By the way, guys, the next guest is Emmett Shear. So I don't know if he's going to be able to make it. I haven't heard from him recently, so hopefully he'll jump on.
Okay.
But worst case, we'll just keep vamping, Ori. Don't let anybody know anything's wrong.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say nothing is wrong. I mean, he can join whenever. But I hear you say that, but I also do think there is something to this criticism, because convince me, what is it about this definition of wanting that is so on point? I mean, in the book, Eliezer, they talk about there's the steering system, and then I forget the other component that they described, but I think this was there's the wanting system and maybe the steering system. And
oh god.
Yeah. No. What is?
This
why
topic,
is this the right definition?
If I understand correctly, what we're talking about here is just like when you build AIs, are you really going to converge to an AI that's going to hardcore want things, hardcore have goals, move heaven and earth to get its goal? Is that really how it has to play out? And a more intelligent rebuttal than this one from Stephen March in the New York Times, a more intelligent rebuttal is by Quentin Pope, where he's like, aren't you guys just making a counting argument? Aren't you just saying that there's like more ways for AIs to converge to these non-human goals and fewer ways for them to do what humans want? At least that's like a somewhat intelligent argument that operates at like a theoretical level, kind of a computer science level. But this argument by Stephen March, he's just saying, you're not even defining wanting, you're just hand waving, you have no idea what you're talking about. This is like a college session. And it's like, we're not hand waving at all, because we have a lot of cases in point of systems evolving or training themselves to successfully get goals. GPT is the most recent case in point. You can give it a bunch of different problems under a bunch of different initial conditions, and under many circumstances, it's finding its way to the goal. Like you can give it all these different hard problems, and it keeps figuring them out. Like it keeps doing this chain of thought, and the chain of thought leads to the goal, like a crazy high fraction of the time, not 100%, but a crazy high fraction of the time. And so there is a boundary you can draw around this type of behavior. When you notice a system that's always goal seeking, robustly goal seeking, navigating around obstacles to hit narrow targets, we can define a class of these kinds of behaviors, and we see these kinds of behaviors a lot. And we see animals have these kind of behaviors. Plants will have this kind of behavior. Like a plant will be pretty crafty how it can, like, the way a plant grows, it's pretty goal optimized. So like generalizing over this class of behavior and then saying that doing this kind of behavior better is like a direction that we can expect. I mean, this seems to me like one of the most robust type of argument there is.
Right. Okay. So this is just basically a semantic argument. Like, you claim that the AI was feeling something, so I'm going to ignore what you had to say, right? It doesn't really matter exactly what word they use here. It's like, observe the behavior. The behavior is this kind of goal seeking. I mean, maybe if he objects to the word want, does he object to the word goal, or replace it with another word and another word? So I think that's what you're calling out, that he's just like, first not appreciating the argument, and then also making a semantic point that like, oh, you anthropomorphize the AI, therefore your whole argument is discredited.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like super weak, and it's like, as people are pointing out, it's like, how is this guy writing for the New York Times? Like, it doesn't even look like he read the book.
Well, look, let me tell you, the problem with this, you knew this was an issue when one of the books that he reviewed is called The AI Con. Okay. Yeah. That, you want to see real crap, look at the AI Con. I'm sure he says it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, NYT, people like to dunk on NYT. And, I describe the NYT as like, yeah, 2/3 of their stuff is like fine. And the other, by journalism standards, and the other 1/3 is like WTF. So I wouldn't say I'm a fan of the NYT. I have some beefs with them on other subjects too, but like on this, which I consider the most important subject, I think they're fumbling it. But I will say this, I think Kevin Roose is pretty solid. I actually don't have a beef with Kevin Roose.
Yeah, Kevin Roose has written a lot of great articles, but what stood out to me in Kevin Roose's take on, with his take on this topic, is that he basically said, like, I'm not really convinced by Eliezer's arguments. He like lists the arguments. He's like, I'm unconvinced, but my PDoom is 5%.
He said,
it's
right,
kind of
5% PDoom. Yeah.
It's kind of incoherent. It's like you can't both believe the argument and then also, or disagree with the argument, but then also say you have a 5%. I mean, I suppose you're leaving a bid in the Bayesian world. But it does, like 5% is very concerning. Kevin Roose has kids, right? He's talked about that. Yeah. He put his kid on one of the podcasts. I mean, Kevin Roose wouldn't go on an airplane. Obviously, that's like a classic example. He wouldn't go on an airplane with his kid, with a 5% risk. And Eliezer said in pretty clear terms in your interview with him that, he doesn't think we have 20 years. It's very, very unlikely that we have 20 years. Right. So, Kevin Roose planning for his kid's future says, I disagree with Eliezer, but I still have 5%. It's just like, what is that? This is the best we got, right? He's one of the best AI journalists. He's going to write an important book about AI. And I mean, honestly, I think he's kind of placating, I think, the people who are on the AI existential risk side by stating some arguments, but then not necessarily following their meaning.
Right. And look, and it's also all relative. So like, I don't want to dunk on Kevin Roose too hard, because look at his competition. These people are both employed by the New York Times, Stephen March and Cade Metz. Cade Metz doesn't have a good reputation in the rationalist community.
I know the rationalists have an issue with him. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I read his stuff and it's always just like bad coverage. It's like, it's the stuff of, what was that? Like Gelman amnesia.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right not to go so hard on Kevin Roose. I mean, but yeah, I guess there is the sort of effect where if you're on a certain side of an issue, like more of the ire is directed towards the people who are on your side, sort of like on your team. Like, why aren't you marching in line?
Yeah, circular firing squad. Yeah, Kevin Roose, welcome to the circular firing squad. I respect you enough to fire nitpicks at you. All right, hey, we got our next guest.
Exactly. Hey, all right. I'll turn on my cam so it can just be
All
you
right,
guys.
sounds good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Emmett Shear.
Hello.
Howdy, Emmett. Welcome to the If Anyone
great.
Builds It, Everyone Dies party.
I'm glad to be here, I think.
Yeah, so right off the bat, you're one of the headline reviewers of this book, and we all really appreciate that you have staked your reputation as an entrepreneur with a storied career, bring a lot of legitimacy to this conversation, and you're basically saying that this book is making a legit argument. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think this book is making a very legitimate argument. It's almost, to me, the baseline argument. Like, if you're thinking about AI safety, you have to grapple with, like, why isn't this true? Like, because this is sort of the default case. If you go down you sort of go with the standard set of assumptions about AI, this is what winds up, the book basically describes what winds up happening. You build a system, you connect it to some goal, you ramp up its capabilities against that goal. Eventually, the results of that as it gets smarter and smarter are potentially very dangerous. And that's like, to me, that's always seemed very obvious, but it's not necessarily obvious if you haven't thought about it a lot. And I think the book does a really good job of sort of walking you down, given these sets of assumptions, this bad thing is just very likely.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. I think you'd probably agree with my characterization that the book just takes just a few simple building blocks and it puts them together, and it's kind of simple logic why it becomes very scary, but it's just like the act of putting together those building blocks just has no analog in nature, so people just don't really think to put it together, and that's kind of why Eliezer Yudkowsky is kind of a genius for focusing on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a way, it has a really clear analog in nature, which is like humanity itself. Like if you're some other non-human animal, humanity itself looks a lot like Foom, right? It looks a lot like an AI suddenly, this thing that is basically similar to you and has basically the same capabilities as you, suddenly starting to self-improve and becoming much, much more capable very, very quickly. And suddenly your entire world gets turned inside out in ways you can't even possibly anticipate. It's different than that, but it's also like it's not totally different from that. It's a similar kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that analogy. And just to reiterate, I think you're going on this path, which I agree with, which is like the level of character assassination that is happening within the tech community or tech Twitter, where people are trying to say like, oh, everybody who thinks doom risk is high, or everybody dying risk is high. Everybody who thinks that, it's just like they're all this type of person. Like they don't really understand AI. They're just pessimists. They've never built anything themselves. Like everybody's like go-to character assassinations. And would you agree that those are just like not fair at all?
I think that the root of my I would say the root of my disagreement with Eliezer is to some degree about an engineer's mindset versus a scientist's mindset. So I think in some sense my background is much more engineering, and I do disagree. I think that is the root of the disagreement. And the arguments are valid. Like you have to grapple with it. You have to say which of these. If you want to disagree with it, you have to say which of these suppositions do you disagree with. And I think for most people, the answer is they don't actually know which. They could not say that thing. They don't like the conclusion. And the response is just to try to throw the whole thing out and not engage with it and call it invalid because honestly, it's terrifying, right? Like if you don't have a way in which you think, if you can't see the path where you can say, no, it's one of these things, and you don't think that we're going to stop building the AI, like I can see why that generates some very serious resistance. Like if you accept the conclusion as true, you're like, you either kind of, it leads you to having to really grapple with it, which, I mean, that's what happened to me. Like the conclusion I wound up coming to, while I don't end where the book ends, it was the start. Like the early versions of this argument that I read on the internet 15 years ago, or I don't know if it was 15, but something like that. It's a long time ago now. Are the basis for the later thought. Like, do I really think all these arguments are true? Is what led me to have this, the other questions.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's worth recapping for the viewers because it's a very interesting position, you know, where maybe you get off the doom train compared to me and Eliezer at a certain stop.
Yeah.
But to reiterate, you're basically saying that Eliezer is laying out very valid problems in like a pretty simple way that's hard to disagree with. Problems such as instrumental convergence, right? Orthogonality. These are kind of like core principles. And you're like, you don't get off those stops on the doom train. The only time where you start diverging with Eliezer is you basically have your ideas about like what a solution looks like, right? That's where you diverge.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I guess you also could say is I don't believe the orthogonality thesis. I think, or rather, I believe in or nuanced version of it, which is that while every possible combination of goals and world model are theoretically possible, like for a moment, they are not. They don't stay that way in a self-consistent way. Eventually, like the reality will disagree with you, and you can choose not to update. Of course, you can be a non-Bayes optimal learner. You can make mistakes and not update your world model, and in that case, you will do. Then you can go to pursue those things, but you will, in some sense, you're not self-consistent anymore. And that becomes its own kind of problem. And I guess you could summarize that position if you were to really just sort of turn into a slogan. Goals are just another kind of belief. And I don't. I've literally been arguing with Eliezer about this for the past couple of days on the internet. But I think that's where I disagree with. That's where I get off the train. Is that I think that goals themselves are a kind of belief that are inferable from reality and are inferred from reality. That's where goals come from, observation, just like all your other beliefs do, and that it is a mistake, therefore, to think of goals as freely chosen, any more than your other beliefs are freely chosen. I mean, sure, you can freely choose them wrong. there's an incorrect way to freely choose them, but like if you're choosing them right, there's an answer. This is Eliezer harpers on this all the time. That like there's a right answer in inference. It's not like you just don't get to just make up what you want the observations to mean. Given your priors, there's a correct answer. Well, given your priors, there's a correct way to update your goals based on observation because the goals are beliefs.
Yep, well said. Okay, man, there's obviously a lot we could talk about in like 2 minutes.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. What do you think, as you're my favorite CEO of OpenAI. So
no, Mira's might be better, but okay, fair enough.
Yeah, okay, tough competition. But what do you think that AI leaders? What do you think their biggest mistake is right now?
It is thinking that what we need is control and steerability. That the AI is going to be a tool we can wield, when they should be thinking about how we're creating a new form of sentient life. And the question is, how do we enter into a care attractor with it? What would it look like for us to be on its team the same way that we are on each other's team? That humanity is a team, families are teams, nations are teams. What would it look like for the AI to be part of our team? And what that does not look like is one member of the team telling the other member of the team what its values and goals are all the time. It looks like both members of the team caring about each other and caring about the attractor separately from each other. Because sometimes the right thing we aren't doing what any one person wants at all. In the families, the kid doesn't want to be doing it, the adult doesn't want to be doing it, and somehow we're doing it because that's what the family needs right now. And that's what a good solution might look like. It's not, there's no amount of control and steerability that's going to get you there.
Fair enough. I mean, so I tend to fall on Eliezer's side of this. So this could be like a very meaty debate. And I saw that you had a debate with, I think, Nate Soares at Manifest. So I know you're engaging in debate. I would love for you to like keep engaging the debate with Eliezer or me or just anybody. I mean, do you think it's productive to just like keep sparring and try to hash this out?
Yeah, I think it's really, this is a key question, because if I'm right, all of the safety stuff and controllability stuff people are trying to do is a net negative. And they should stop because it's actually the thing that's the most dangerous single thing we're doing. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and like my whole approach is incorrect, right? So like that's a pretty big divergence actually, and I think really important to work out. And I'm not arrogant enough to think that I am somehow going to like find the solution. I'm like working on a solution, but like we need everybody working on a solution, not just like my particular take on how to go about doing it.
It's a crazy situation because, like we agreed, I mean, there's so many stops on this doom train, right? There's so many parts of the argument of why things seem really urgent and risky. There's so many ways to like get off and be like, no, I don't believe things are urgent and risky. And I consider you somebody who's come so far, right? Like a really big ally to people who are thinking this way. And then I also disagree with you on some of the later stops, right? And it's just like, man, there's so much we can talk about. But I think let's focus on the first part, right? Which is made an endorsement of the book. And let's wrap on that. So your endorsement says, Soares and Yudkowsky lay out in plain and easy to follow terms why the current path we are on to build ever more powerful AIs is extremely dangerous. And I think you elaborated right now why AI Labs may be kind of going toward the wrong criteria and trying to control AI. So yeah, I mean, this is, that all makes a lot of sense.
If you keep ramping the capability of the AI and the capability of it to basically go to find solutions to reducing a loss function, and you keep driving towards being able to control exactly which behaviors you like or not, that combination is extremely dangerous. I really don't see how that doesn't eventually end in tears, very short-lived tears potentially. And so I think that, and the book basically lays out why you shouldn't do that. Exactly what kind of things happen when you try to go down that path.
Totally. Okay. So as a call to action, do you think it would be productive for this book to basically move the Overton window and have a lot of people talking about these ideas?
Yes, that's why I gave the endorsement, because even though I disagree, you have to grapple with this question. You should come to your conclusion why this is right or wrong, but it's not something that you can dismiss as it's not an easy question to answer. It took me multiple years of really thinking about it before I had any kind of coherent belief one way or another about what might be wrong about the argument.
Great. Well, you yourself are a big Overton window mover on the subject. So thank you for that. And thanks for coming to this party.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got another guest coming up. You know her from PauseAI fame. If you've ever seen me yelling into a megaphone, that was probably from a protest that she planned. Please welcome Holly Elmore. All right, Holly, hopefully that wasn't too short notice. Yeah, also, we've got producer Ori moseying back in. Hey, Holly.
Hello.
All right, welcome to
the. I wanted to find something festive like your hat, but I couldn't.
All right, yeah, well, party attire, it's hard to find, but if you bought the book, that's already good enough. Okay, so guys, more
it is
about
bright.
Exactly. So more about Holly. She's the founder and executive director of PauseAI US. She holds a doctorate in evolutionary biology from Harvard University, and she's been involved in the world of effective altruism. She knows some of the key individuals working in frontier AI development and AI safety, the same people she now leads protests against. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just heard your episode with Robert Wright, which I thought was really good. You guys were basically talking about the social dynamics of this community, and you mentioned that you were Facebook friends with Dario. Is that right?
I think I still am. I don't know if he's very active on Facebook these days.
Do you ever send him a poke?
I did accidentally invite him to early protests, including one at Anthropic. Just, because you have to click like one by hand, and I managed to invite him.
It's pretty funny. Yeah, the Dario Sucks group. Hey, Ori. Yeah, and you guys know each other too. Ori's been to some of these protests. Yeah, so in general, what's the current state of the protesting movement?
Well, in San Francisco, where I live, Stop AI has been much more active, and they've been focusing mostly on OpenAI up until this hunger strike that Guido has had at Anthropic. And that's been more of my local. Around the country, we've got a lot of groups starting up and doing, small starter protests just across the entire country. We've got some very great photos from our 15 local groups, and I've been working a lot on maintaining those. But actually, our next sort of big event in October is going to be around this book, and it's going to be more of a fun one. It's not going to be yelling at AI company buildings. It's going to be discussing this book. So I do want to plug that. The one in San Francisco, where we are, is going to be at Manny's in the Mission, 5 to 8 on October 4th. And there's going to be events across the country, and there's also going to be events in Europe, across Europe, during this next 2-week period, or the 2-week period after October 4th. So we're giving everybody a chance to read the book, and then we're going to kind of come together and discuss what do you do from here if you feel worried.
Oh, yeah. And what do you think about Michael Trazzi's hunger strike?
Well, PauseAI doesn't do that. A lot of people attributed the hunger strikes to PauseAI, which was interesting. I guess it was kind of gratifying, like that's who they think of, But but yeah, we don't do stunts, and but Trazzi decided to do it. He was inspired by Guido, and I was honestly I was kind of worried. Trazzi had a very concrete demand, but I didn't. I'm nervous about stunts because I don't want things to go too far. I think we really have such a strong base of just moderate activism all to get established, in this space already, quite enough to be getting on with. But I think that the reaction I saw to it was pretty positive. That it really impressed upon people the severity, what's going on. So I think it ended up having a positive reception.
Yeah.
I was blown away. Just jumping, I was blown away that some people were like, "Oh, this must be PauseAI." I saw someone on Twitter, a notable AI safety figure, say, "Oh, I'm not sure if it was PauseAI, but it's people who are spiritually aligned with PauseAI." It's like
spiritually, yeah. PauseAI is becoming one of those generic brand terms. Oh, I'm going to Google it. I'm just going to PauseAI. It's
that was the hope. And as long as you're not claiming to officially represent our organizations, take the name. It's a movement that's meant to represent something very broad. It's called PauseAI because a lot fits under the umbrella of pausing AI. I think you can say they're spiritually aligned with PauseAI, but it just so happens we have pretty strict rules about not doing that kind of stunt.
I mean, it wasn't your initiative, so you can't attribute it to PauseAI thing. I mean, maybe there's some similar beliefs, but it's a Republican is different from a Democrat, is different from a libertarian. They may have some shared views, but they're totally different. So, I mean, there is some alignment though on the views though. But yeah,
exactly. So Holly, I feel like I do like to compliment the guests, but you really deserve it. You're a thought leader, at least as far as my own thinking is concerned. So everybody check out Holly's blog because you make a bunch of points in your posts and also in your Less Wrong post that they're not like what other people are saying. It's legit original. And it's influenced me, in particular, protesting this idea of hey, we should protest. I don't think that I would have gotten there without your influence. So that was really good. And you've got other posts talking about how AI isn't another technology, riffing on that. So you've got a bunch of different posts. And one of the things that I think you and I are both on the same page on that I feel like other people are not, is just this idea of the circular firing squad, right? People just love to stay on their forum and argue instead of just agreeing enough to just get out there and do the mission.
Yes. Yeah, it is something. It's funny because you just mentioned Robert Wright's podcast. I end up engaging a lot in talking about the sociology of the groups that starting PauseAI was kind of trying to get away from them and leapfrog them and just talk to the public. And I've been surprised how much I kind of still get mired because the story of what's going on isn't really just the story about, it's not just about the technology. It's not just about the kinds of things discussed in this book. If anyone builds it, anyone dies is about just sort of a theoretical case. The issues on the ground do have a lot to do with tribalism and who knows who and who trusts who and who's investing in who, and that it actually ends up being kind of a complicated morass where you can't leave, but I think you should as much as you can take action anywhere you are without being involved in this whole the deep sociology of the problem. And I keep trying to move further out, but the more I move further out, kind of the more when I double back, it's more productive. So I think I've argued many times and I've kind of said this is the time, I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to be focused on only trying to reach the public. And I do end up coming back and then, kind of delivering my take on what's going on in the psychology of tech bros or something.
Exactly. Now, I think that I have an advantage in terms of my psychology, which is that I'm just relatively less sensitive to what other people think. So that's what, so I have the superpower of cringe, right? I think you saw the video, I was dressed as the Grim Reaper or whatever, right? So the cringe is my Star Wars force. But in your case, I don't actually think that's you, right? I think you actually are sensitive to all this stuff.
Yeah. The thing that surprised me was I just really thought that the existing AI safety community before ChatGPT was released, basically, before that time, I thought that they would be excited to move into stuff like protesting and into doing advocacy. I really believed the story, that I had been told for like 10 years, which is that they didn't already do those things in AI safety because they didn't already do these things because it just wasn't time. Like people, it's too weird. The idea is too sci-fi, it's people don't listen to you and you'll have no impact and people will think you're crazy. And so that will it will backfire if you try to talk to the public about it or talk to politicians about it. If you talk to the government about it, they will just want to build it. They'll see how powerful it is and like that'll be dangerous. So they had all these excuses. And then when it seemed like, okay, now we have ChatGPT, and the public's really getting it, and we're getting these amazing polls saying, like that 70% of people like think that there should be regulation on this. They think it could be dangerous. They just didn't really want to do it. And then they the first protest I held, or the first couple of protests I held, a lot of people on my own side were just incredibly like viciously brutal about it. And like, it took me a long time to realize like, oh, they just don't want to do this. Like, because, they couched it in terms of like, this is wrong. And they would try to make me feel bad. Like, this is bad for the cause. Like, you're actually doing something really, and I would like feel like I had to take that really seriously, even though it didn't make any sense to me. And, yeah, so that was the thing. That's really what I'm sensitive to. It was funny to hear people describe me as like having thick skin. I think like, no, I don't. But I do. Like, I don't care if somebody gets it wrong in like the mainstream media. But it was like the people who I really thought were my friends and allies on this, like that hurt. And, and they didn't just tell me, I don't want to do this, or this is, I think it's cringe. Like they kind of tried to convince me that like they had the moral high ground in not going there.
Right. Can I throw out
kind of like it's like gaslighting almost.
And can I throw out an idea also? We were just talking about how there's the circular firing squad. It's like your people who are on your own team, maybe you go harder on. And I wonder to what extent that is a lot of the animosity that you see from people in tech, because maybe they agree with you on many things. They see you as kind of the same, similarly aligned person, but on this topic they don't, and that can bring up a lot of feelings.
Oh yeah, I had many. I won't say the name of this person because I think they were just on the show. But I've had many people come at me and say that I'm like embarrassing, making it hard for them to like do what they need to do for AI safety because I seem like a Luddite, and that like happened and it often just made no sense. Like I got a lot of glimpses into people's deep thinking on this because they would just say things that were so, I had no idea where it even came from, but like to them, they were connected. Like they looked at what I was doing and they're like, that's embarrassing. That's like a loser thing. Like you're not going to win. That's leftist. That's feminist is a big comment that I got was that the protesters must be feminist. And so like, it was kind of against a lot of like cool boy tech energy and like, and because of that, like they were mad, like stop embarrassing us. Like, I'm not gonna, back then even like it's gotten better already, but like people really believed like our only chance was to like get in with powerful tech guys and like powerful intellectuals and stuff, and that was our own influence and like seeming really cool was our only way to like achieve this cause. And I just think I don't know, maybe there's a time when that's true, but that stopped being true. And you have to start like developing this huge open opportunity to talk to normal people and frankly have real power.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, I like that you've basically gone like explicitly antagonistic, because I have too, with like the AI companies, because it's so nice. I mean, on a personal level, I think people who work at Anthropic are like objectively, maybe if they were doing something else, like take that variable out of the equation, like objectively, they seem like really good human specimens. Like I wish there were like more people like them in the world. But then if you look at their actions, it's like, isn't that actually like a really bad choice? And I think you made that decision of like, well, we really got to like cut off the sympathy and just be like, stop making bad choices, guys.
It does amaze me. Like I realized how insular and protected like the world that I had been in and like EA really was after, starting to do advocacy, because they really just, I was like, they don't know that like good people who were like really impressive and like interesting and smart and wanted to do good stuff have done terrible things. Like, what do they think it's like? You know, like when an entire country, like their military does the wrong thing. Like there's lots of people swept up in that, you know, who are not bad, but you have to oppose them. Like it's so strange. Like it feels very like kind of like touchingly innocent, like the way that especially EAs act about Anthropic, like, oh, but because we're good, you know, it's going to be fine. And like, I really think that a lot of them, like, it's not that they've taken any steps that they really think are wrong. It's just that like, they're so trusting of the leadership and they never really were reasoning that well morally for themselves, even though the moral calculus that they endorse is very complicated. And like, if a couple of conditions change, it should change their analysis. Like they're pretty clearly just like following the leader that provides them nice stuff and cool things to do and a mission where they're like saving the world and like they get to think about what they're going to do in the singularity and all that. Like, yeah, it's been very upsetting because I also like, I really loved that community. I thought they were doing the right thing. And like, I do think a lot of people at Anthropic really mean well, but I also think it's absolutely their responsibility to see through this.
Yeah.
Should we
that's a good central message there. Yeah, go ahead.
Should we play the Eliezer clip about Anthropic?
Do you have it teed up?
Yeah, I just got to that point.
All right, go for it. Let's do
All right,
opinion on Anthropic.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear your reaction, Holly.
I'm curious to hear.
Okay, let me share my screen. Here we go.
Or I can't hear the audio.
Oh, you can't?
Yeah, I don't know if maybe somebody else can.
I can.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure how do I get the audio going?
Well, I've got an anecdote to share. Let's make this all about me, okay? Talking about circular firing squad. So I just posted the Eliezer interview on Less Wrong. I'm like, you know who's gonna like an Eliezer interview? The Less Wrong community. Now, to be fair, it did get like it's got like 58 upvotes or something, so that's considered a lot for Less Wrong. So I don't want to complain too much. But then I look at the comments. There's 2 top-level comments. First comment. Don't you think you were super flattering to Eliezer? It's just too much Eliezer flattery. It's just all about the ideas, not Eliezer the person. He even says he wants it to be about the ideas, not him. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, he is a genius, and the ideas do seem to localize to him, but okay. All right, second comment. I also agree about the comment about being too fawning around Eliezer. That was the entire Less Wrong one, which is like, okay, that's totally fine. I mean, it's fine to have nitpicks and be a nuanced thinker, but it's just like the ratios get distorted, right? Because
It's on a website where you can just cite something Eliezer's written as like the Bible.
Right, exactly. It's his way. He started Less Wrong. Everybody's on Less Wrong because of Eliezer Yudkowsky, right? And the only 2 comments about this big Eliezer Yudkowsky interview are you're too fawning for Eliezer. It's like somebody needs to do the job of fawning over Eliezer. Okay, I'm doing the yeoman's work here.
Wow. All right, I couldn't get the audio working.
Are they going to turn on Eliezer? I've been wondering actually if Less Wrong is going to turn on Eliezer because of writing the popular book. Because
I mean, that's the best way to get status, right? Is to be so original that you turn on Eliezer.
He sold out, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that's what they didn't like
money,
about
yeah.
me doing. Like I was never fully welcome at Less Wrong because I think for being a girl, like frankly, like they would accuse me of being like a high status person who like didn't get it because I went to Harvard and you know, but like and then they didn't like that I did EA stuff. You know, they were often hostile to that. But like, but Eliezer, like they've not really known what to do since he wrote the Time article. You know, first espousing this view and like switching to government intervention as the hope. I mean, it's really an extremely like libertarian alternative place. And you don't really get, there's no contingent of Less Wrong that really like embraces like government solutions. Like it's kind of, the whole community was filtered on like a few things. And one of them is like hating public school and being traumatized there. And like, so I think it's amazing. I mean, anybody but Eliezer would have just been like booed out from the beginning, you know, with that position. And people haven't really known what to do about it. But I kind of wonder. I wondered if like the contingent that's just online is like gonna turn on Eliezer now or like be less associated with him, even though this is the website that holds the sequences.
Exactly. Sweet. Okay, great. So yeah, we're coming up on time here, but I guess I think a good note to end on is just like, I think we hit on some important topics, and I do see you as a thought leader, or perhaps like a mindset leader, right? Or like a how to feel socially leader. And I hope that you keep doing that.
Thank you. It means a lot.
Sweet. All right.
Especially coming from you. Liren has spoken at almost all of our protests and recent protests, and is really good, uniquely talented at this.
Megaphone skills, baby. All right. Hell yeah. Thanks, Holly.
Bye, Holly.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a very special guest left into the back half, but certainly last is not least here. So please welcome Professor Gary Marcus. Hey, Gary. That was up the alarm.
Say again?
I did an alarm, which both doubles as a celebration and also waking up guests who are waiting.
I see. No, I'm not so far away. I'm awake.
Okay, Gary, I have it on good authority here that your battery is at less than 20%. Is that correct?
Oh, shoot. Why is that?
the streaming software showed me that.
It'll probably last for 15 minutes.
Yeah, let me tell you guys a little bit about Gary. So first of all, you probably know Gary from his #1 accomplishment, which is being a guest on Doom Debates, coming into the Lion's Den and really holding his own against me. I was really happy with how he participated on Doom Debates and puts him in rarefied air compared with many of his peers. Professor Gary Marcus is a scientist, best-selling author, and entrepreneur, well known as one of the most influential voices in AI. He is Professor Emeritus of Psychology and Neuroscience at NYU. He was founder and CEO of Geometric Intelligence, a machine learning company acquired by Uber in 2016. He co-authored the 2024 book, Taming Silicon Valley, How We Can Ensure That AI Works for Us. Yeah, I read his books in preparation for our interview, and my personal favorite is actually a deep cut. His book, Kludge, which is, I talked about this in my interview with him, which is kind of like, it dovetails a lot with what Eliezer Yudkowsky was writing about, like heuristics and biases, Tversky and Kahneman, and he was a little bit ahead of his time when not that many people were talking about this kind of thing.
Okay, it's not recognizing my camera. Hang on.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. We're prepared for this. We got more clips, right? All right, here, I got one. Okay, so me and Ori went out on the street. I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream. We wanted to see what the average person in middle America thinks about if anyone builds it, everyone dies. And what we found in general was that a lot of people's opinions were like very reasonable. Essentially, they had a high P-Doom. They were worried. They didn't realize how far along Silicon Valley was. They didn't realize how powerful GPT-5 was. They were kind of stuck on trying GPT-3. That said, some of the debates were no better than the ones I had on Twitter. So here is one of the debates where I might as well just stick to Twitter because it did not go very productively.
Okay, at some point, do you think it's plausible that artificial intelligence will ever get smarter than the human brain?
Yes.
How long do you think it'll take?
I don't care.
Let's say it's 10 years, a reasonable lesson.
I don't care.
By the way, that's Ori in the robot
costume. At some point when
costume.
it does, do you think that it will have the capability to disempower humanity?
No.
Why not?
Because humans are smarter than that.
But the premise, you just said that you thought maybe it'll get smarter than humans.
That's okay if it gets smarter than humans. There's still safeguards that you can put in place.
Like what?
I don't know. You can give EMP device and kill it.
It's going to spread like a virus.
You ever heard of a solar flare?
I have.
Okay, in 1913, there was only a telegraph system, right? And they had a solar flare, wiped the whole thing out, right? What happens when we have the next solar flare? What happens to the internet and Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I agree.
What happens to your money on your phone?
I agree that there's a window of time where if we completely destroy...
Tell me.
But I'm agreeing with your point. I'm agreeing with your point. I'm saying yes.
You got a stupid fucking book and you're fucking stupid. See ya.
Right.
God bless you. God loves you, though.
God bless you as well.
So yeah, with that kind of discourse, I might as well stay on Twitter.
I saw that guy in Gary's tweet replies.
Funny.
That's if you want that in text, I mean, just look at Gary's replies. Anytime he reacts to a new AI announcement.
Exactly,
all the tech bros are just piling up on him.
Exactly. All right, Gary, welcome to the party.
They pile up, but they're wrong. I mean, we all saw that August 7th was Gary Marcus Day. I didn't even name it. So they can pile up all they want, but they can't make GPT-5 as smart as they thought it would be. So
Okay, yeah. Well, we'll touch on that in a bit. I think let's get to the real issue at hand here. So Eliezer's book came out, and you have a forthcoming review getting published about the book. What does that
Tomorrow
say?
in the Times Literary Supplement.
Oh, very
All
nice.
right. Yeah. Can we get a sneak preview?
Yeah, that's what we're here for. I mean, I'm not going to hold it up to the camera for copyright reasons because I'm the last person in America who respects copyright. But yeah, I'll give you the basic argument. So you know, there's been a range of opinion, right? Max Tegmark said it's the most important book you'll ever read. And the New York Times today said that it was Scientology. And I think it's safe to say that, you know, the answer is somewhere in between those extremes. So I go through and I list 8 things that I agree with. And there are probably more, but I give, you know, some of the highlights. I'll give you a few of them. I think that, and you can, you know, take this out of context and clip it together and I won't even be upset. Rogue AI is a possibility that we should not ignore. But I think that that's, you know, a fundamental piece of the book, and I totally agree with it. I agree that we have no solution to the alignment problem. I think he likened it, maybe you sent me a clip, likened it to alchemy. Like, we really don't have an idea about how to solve the alignment problem. And I have an idea that we haven't tried, but there's no public idea that you know, really works very well at all. And people are just stirring the pot and hoping for the best. I think that figuring out the solution to the alignment problem is really, really important. And, you know, I'm with Eliezer and Nate on that. I think figuring out the solution to it is really, really hard. And I think I'm with them on that too. I think that superintelligence might come relatively soon, not as soon as they do, but, you know, I think it's certainly come this century, and I think it could happen maybe a decade from now or something like that. So like in the geological time frame, if it comes in a decade, that's still soon. You know, I don't think it's going to come next year like some people do. I think that's silly, and we can talk about that. But yeah, it could certainly come this century. I think that the public should be more concerned than it is. And, you know, most of the public doesn't really care, or, you know, they say that they care, but they don't really act in any way that, you know, indicates genuine concern. I think governments should be concerned that most of them are. There might be a few that really care, but most of them, it's pretty back of the mind for them. And then I think that the short-term benefits, I might even think this more strongly than native, that the short-term benefits of AI might not, you know, come in, you know, might not outweigh those risks depending on how you factor them in and so forth. So there's a lot that I agree with in the book. And then furthermore, they have a premise in their argument, which is that superintelligence will inevitably come and it'll inevitably be smarter than any human. I think that's probably true too. Again, I don't have the same timelines that they might, although in the book, they're not that committal about their timelines. So I agree with them about that too.
Okay.
Now we get to the.
Yeah, I'm glad you agree with them on some points, but yeah, okay, go on.
So many. There are actually only 2 points that I disagree with in a way, but they're important. One is they think that any AI that's smarter than any human will inevitably seek to eliminate all humans. I don't see that at all. You know, I think there are scenarios in the book where that could happen. They feel like science fiction to me. I understand sometimes science fiction comes true, like, you know, Arthur C. Clarke imagined satellites and we have them, and, you know, so, you know, to be science fiction is not necessarily wrong, but I don't really see their argument, and I'll go into some more detail about why not. And then they have a premise, which is basically there's nothing that humans can do to stop this threat aside from not building AGI in the first place. And I don't think that follows either. And so my review kind of lays out the 8 or 9 things that I agree with, and then deconstructs those 2 premises. And I think fundamentally, to kind of telegraph it down, I think they paint humans as unable to resist in a meaningful way, which I don't think is plausible. And I think that they have some idealizations about how fast things would happen. And I think they confuse intelligence with 2 other things, which are power and omniscience. And although I can imagine a super intelligent machine, that doesn't necessarily mean that it will be omniscient, doesn't necessarily mean that it will be all powerful. So we've had very intelligent humans that are not particularly powerful. Even some very powerful humans aren't infinitely powerful. And so I think that they make some idealizations there to get to the end point. So in a way, the only thing I really strenuously disagree with is the title. I think the title is much too strong. If they had said, if anybody builds it, we should worry about whether everybody might die, which of course wouldn't sell as many books, I'd say, okay, like I think it's very reasonable to put these arguments out there in the public realm. I don't think that they're compelling.
Okay, and yeah, I'm glad that you've already been on my show, because the crux of your disagreement with Eliezer's book, I don't have to ask you to unpack it because you were such a great sport and you spent over an hour unpacking it with me, and I think the viewers can come and decide for themselves. You know, we've already hit on that disagreement, correct?
Yeah, and I mean, I spent an hour, and I'm a very busy guy right now because I do think that these issues are important, and I came back today for the same reason. Like, I think there's something real that they're worrying about. I think that they're worrying more than they should, and I guess they killed at the last minute my opening line, which was "Don't panic." I don't think anybody needs to panic. You know, I'm worried there are people in the San Francisco area who are making kind of weird decisions because they think all of this stuff is inevitable and there's nothing we can do about it. And I don't think that anybody should hold that view. I think lots of people should hold the view that this is stuff we should take seriously, we should think about, but not that anybody should panic.
Yep. So to recap, you came to Doom debates a couple months ago and you said your PDoom was 1% or even less. And the crux of our disagreement was that basically you didn't think superintelligence could plausibly quickly become much smarter and threaten humanity. That was kind of roughly the crux. But then
the crux was really about resilience. The crux was really
humanity
about
would be resilient to like a right. So it wouldn't be like a kill everybody permanently type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I should say that I think catastrophe is a real possibility here. It's extinction that I think is not that plausible because we're biologically diverse, we're genetically diverse, we're geographically diverse around the planet. If the aliens came for us and didn't get us, not the aliens, sorry, they got almost treated like they're aliens. If the AIs came from us, these superintelligence came for us, they might actually kill 10% of humans. But at that point, we'd be bombing the data centers. We'd all be unified on that, and we would fight back. And I think that the doom arguments underestimate resilience, underestimate how much humans would band together in situations like this and so forth. It's not that there's like 0% chance, and my PDoom was never 0. And I know you're about to ask me, something made me raise it recently, and we can talk about that. But all in all, I do have some respect for humans' ability to organize and humans' ability to resist, and also our biology's ability to resist. So, for example, COVID killed, I think, 1% of humanity, which is awful. It's a horrible thing, and I think horrible things could happen. But it wasn't extinction, you know, because some people were genetically resistant. It's actually very difficult, I think, even if you want to build a pathological mechanism that spreads that far that nobody can do anything about, that actually annihilates us. Like, there have been extinction events, obviously, in history, but we're pretty well equipped to fight a lot of things. We're spending too much time messing with each other right now. There's too much polarization and all kinds of political problems. But if the AIs really came for us, I think that would unify humanity in a way that nothing else has in a very long time.
Right. So speaking of that polarization and going back to the story, so we debated, you had this low PDoom, you thought humanity would be resilient, but then a little while after our debate, you posted that your PDoom is now 2% because you just became disheartened with how dysfunctional the discourse was and the political decisions.
Well,
so that's
really about
recent,
a person, really. I'll let the listeners guess this person, but I said,
starts with an E.
I knew you might ask. I actually brought a piece from my Substack where I talk about this. I said, to really screw up the planet, you might need something like the following: a really powerful person with tentacles across the entire planet, substantial influence. The person would have substantial influence over the world's information ecosphere, a large number of devoted followers willing to justify almost any choice, leverage over world governments and their leaders, physical boots on the ground in a wide part of the world, a desire for military contracts, some form of massively empowered, but not necessarily very smart AI, incomplete or poor control over that AI, a tendency towards impulsivity and risk-taking, a disregard for conventional norms, an outright malice towards humanity, or at least a kind of reckless indifference. Now, if you had somebody that had all of that, that would actually be something to worry about. And I'm afraid we do have such a person now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what I noticed when you say that is, I think with Elon, it's hard to like or dislike everything because he just throws so many different aspects at the wall. He's quite a unique guy. But what I'm noticing is just your mindset of like humanity is so resilient, and so in order to get worried about humanity's doom, you kind of need this special circumstance. But maybe we have a special circumstance, right?
I mean, even so, it's only 2%. Like, I still think it's
exactly
unlikely, but I do see a scenario where someone really rich and powerful who basically can get away with what they want also builds AI and is reckless. So like you can look at a bunch of different companies, and most of the companies try to do, I won't say the right thing, but something that is in the direction of the right thing. And, then you can have somebody who just says, fuck it. And I'm going to do what I want. And I want to, win this race, and I'm behind, and is just callously indifferent. Like that would be a sort of enabling condition for a certain number of scenarios.
Right. Do you think a good summary of your views is that you think humans are bad at coordination and we don't really get our act together when we have to coordinate, but we're good when we just don't have to coordinate that much, when we can have like pockets of ingenuity, and you think that the universe is just going to be good to us where the pockets of ingenuity are just going to be enough to get the job done and survive?
I mean, the universe is not going to be good to us. I mean, we got to take care of ourselves. Let's be honest about that. I think that by and large, humanity is not doing a great job right now. We're not great stewards of the planet, to borrow a phrase that George Bush used, maybe inappropriate once upon a time. And I think that we have a lot of problems with coordination and so forth. But I do think that there are certain circumstances that would bring out our best. And I think being under siege by a bunch of robots or whatever, I mean, it's hard even in the book, they're pretty mealy-mouthed about what would actually do us in. Like they consider a bunch of scenarios. They don't really commit to any of them. They kind of start talking about biological weapons, and then they're like, well, maybe that only can kill 10%, but maybe the aliens will, not the aliens, I keep calling them the aliens, the AIs that have a kind of like intelligence, will boil all the oceans by building so many data centers and whatever. Like, I have a hard time taking that seriously. Like, these are plans that take many steps. If aliens, I can't believe I keep saying that. If AI, super intelligent AIs, killed 10% of us with, some kind of biological weapon, which would already be 10 times more lethal than COVID. But like, let's give that assumption a free pass. There's no way that we are going to sit around and not sabotage data centers at that point. By this kind of crazy hypothesis in the book, they're going to be building all of these like nuclear plants. Like you can't do that without any resistance after you kill off 10% of the population. And I know you can tell stories, you can tell endless stories. Okay, but what if when they did the first part, like they subverted all of the scientists, and the scientists pretended because they were bribed and blah, 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 that it was like, you can tell these stories. But the other point that I make in this essay is there's a statistical problem here. And the statistical problem here is that all of these scenarios depend on multiplying a lot of low probability events. If they're statistically independent, then you just multiply them. And so if you have, 8 1 and 2s, you're already down to 1 in 256. Like when you string together the assumptions like that, you wind up with a story that is plausible for the purposes of a science fiction novel, but not one that necessarily is likely. And even if you take the cumulative, summing up all of these scenarios, to me, it's nowhere near 100% that they're basically pitching in the book.
All right, I gotcha. So that's the review that we're all going to be reading tomorrow.
It'll be out tomorrow in TLS, and I told you most of what it says.
Nice. All right. Well, let's go meta. Let's talk about the discourse. I give you credit for engaging debate and making public predictions. That's really more than I can say for most people who think that they're contributing to the discourse. So I really appreciate that. So let me ask you this. Do you think that this book is productive for the discourse, and how so?
I mean, for some things and not others. I don't think it's very good on the technical side. I don't think it contributes anything seriously to the timeline debate, for example. It doesn't try that hard to, but like that's not the strength of the authors. The strength of the authors is in painting possible scenarios and in raising awareness. And I think that raising awareness is a contribution to the discourse. Now, I think that there's a problem in the sort of broad skepticism of AI, which is you have people that are worried about short-term risks and people that are worried about long-term risks. And I really wish to God that they would work together more, and instead there's kind of two poles and they don't get along, and I try to sit in the middle and everybody hates me because I'm not a card-carrying member of either. I think that this book does a really good job of laying out why someone would even care about these issues and take them seriously. So I'm saying it's not 100% like they say. In fact, I only think it's 2%, but 2% is a lot. 2% chance of annihilating the species, if that's a right number, like, of course we should be thinking about it then. And most people, because it sounds like science fiction, don't really engage. So even if the book is off by a factor of 50, they say 100 given AGI, and I say 2, and let's say that you should believe me and not them, that's still like something we should think about. And they've done a better job here, I think, of getting people to think about that than most, efforts to do so have. And also they've laid out the arguments so somebody like me can go critique them, and then there could be a next level. So somebody can say, okay, I see Marcus's point about, probabilities multiplying out and becoming low, but did you think about this thing? Or I see, Marcus's point about this other thing, but did you consider, Marcus thinks we're going to be resilient, but look at this situation, etc. And so, putting a stake in the ground has value, even if it's not correct. I mean, that's how we do science. And like, what people don't understand about me on Twitter is I believe in the dialectic. That's why I'm there every day, is because I think that having dialectic about things gets us to a better place. Like, I have a dialectic, it's not a perfect one, but with Ethan Malik on sort of where AI is right now and how much it helps productivity or whatever. And, he and I don't really agree on much of anything, but we mostly have civil conversations, and the truth is probably somewhere in between us. And there's value in letting other people see both sides of an argument. And I think that they lay out one side of the argument. I think, just calling it Scientology, as the Times book review did today, is not really a useful way. I think it's more useful to do what I did, which is try to look premise by premise and say, where does the argument break? And then people can go back and forth and say, this argument works, this doesn't, and let's go from there.
Yeah, that's a good note to end on. I personally wish that the discourse would range from Eliezer Yudkowsky on the high end of doom to Gary on the low end of doom with 2%. And then all those people who are like, it's 0.01%, this is wasting my time. Those guys ruin everything.
Well, I mean, those guys should make their case better. And, dismissing the book, as the Times kind of did, is not the way to make that case better. The way to make that case better is to go through, look at the numbers and or look at the premises of people's arguments and try to address them. And so now we have some stakes in the ground, and let's go discuss. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks very much, Gary Marcus. All right, we got to do round 2 in another year.
All right, sounds great. Take care.
Thanks for your contributions to the discourse, making it better.
Discourse
for the win.
Yep. All right, guys, let's head right into the next guest. Yeah, lots of great conversations. We've got to do more of these parties. All right, next guest is, you may have seen him on his own podcast. Please welcome Robert Wright. Hey, Bob, how's it going?
Howdy.
I'm doing well. How are you? Can you see me?
Yes. So yeah, Bob, I listen to your podcast a lot. You've got a consistent rate of podcast bangers, most recently the Holly Elmore interview, and I recommend everybody check it out.
I saw Holly on here earlier. I feel honored to be in her company.
Nice.
I'm
Cool.
sorry I forgot my hat, though. I'm sorry I forgot the birthday hat.
Yeah, the party hat.
Here, let me hand you one through the screen.
Yeah, could you? Thank you.
Nice. All right. Yeah. So let's we're gonna talk a little bit about if anyone builds it, anyone dies, and then I think this may potentially break some news here because I want to talk about your new book.
Well, new is a slight I mean, it's not published yet, but yeah, it's on the horizon. Yes.
All right. Hell yeah. So if anyone builds it, everyone dies. Have you had a chance to read it yet? I know it's only out the first day, and if so, what's your review?
I haven't read it. I'm familiar with Eliezer's worldview. In fact, he was on my podcast about 15 years ago when it was under a different name. It wasn't called the NonZero podcast. Yeah. And he was kind of in transition from singularity optimist to what he is today. He was in a state of, I would call, considerable concern about AI, and he kind of laid it out for me. And I've kept track of the argument. I have a sense for the argument. And my position on it, and the position I'm going to express in my book, is that although I do not feel compelled by his kind of chain of logic to feel as confident as he does that if anyone builds it, everyone dies, I think the scenario of AI takeover is much harder to dismiss than many people think. And one thing I'm going to try to do in the book is make it clear, to an educated lay audience who isn't necessarily immersed in the vocabulary of AI and the vocabulary of doom talk, why I think that's the case. I think if you look at the power of the technology and understand the source of the power, in a certain sense, the source of the power of neural networks, and just kind of look at the basic trajectories along which it's moving, it's hard to be confident that we're going to be able to control it, especially if we don't get our act together and start paying attention to it. So that's part of the argument I make. I'm glad he's out there making the argument.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Now, I haven't asked you this before. What is your PDoom?
I was afraid you'd have to. I don't really have one. So what is it? Chances of actual total human extinction?
Yeah, exactly. And let's say by 2050.
Mm. Well, I have two. If everyone reads my book, it's low, and if they don't, it's super high. So if I were them, I would pre-order. But no, seriously, it's very hard for me to think about. What I feel confident about is that, if instead of P-doom, you say like P catastrophe, where catastrophe is defined kind of broadly, but to mean, like at a minimum, like kind of epic destabilization of the planet that leads to the overthrow of governments and stuff. I would say, unless not only like people in America start paying attention to it, but the nations get together and start looking at it as a collective challenge, I would say if that doesn't happen, way over 50% for serious trouble down the road. I mean, even if we don't have like AI takeover,
Right.
It's just
okay, but try to merge all the different paths
going to be
into
at a
one
minimum,
PDoom.
I think, destabilizing. What's that?
Try to merge all the different outcomes. Multiply the probability of each path by the likelihood, the PDoom of the path by the likelihood of the path. And you got to give me one number, man.
10% chance of something way worse than almost anyone is imagining right now. I mean, your community accepted, of course, but the average person out there trying to make sense of AI.
Yeah. I mean, I think
actually a higher chance. Yeah. I'd go higher than 10% for that. But anyway, go ahead.
Nice. Yeah. And, people confuse like me asking for a number. It's not like I'm trying to extract out like a decimal precision here, right? It's more like, are we in the same ballpark? And it sounds like we are. I mean, anything 2 digits seems totally reasonable to me. And I have no idea if it's 10 or 20, 30, 40, 50, any of those 2-digit numbers I'm fine with. But yeah, I mean, just the idea that this could all come to a crunch, right? Like this could all, go down negative 99% instead of positive 10% a year or whatever people are expecting. That I think that's a very important idea that you only see, as I told Eliezer, you kind of only see this in the prepper community. And I'm not a prepper, but I'm just somebody who realizes there are discontinuous effects.
Yeah. No, it's, I keep wondering when the moment is going to hit that everybody kind of says, whoa. I mean, I don't mean they say, whoa, PDoom is super high, but they recognize that this really isn't an ordinary technology. It's in some ways an extension of some very important past technologies, but it's qualitatively different and brings totally new challenges.
Right. This was made more real for me when I went out on the street and talked to average people. Like the idea that AI is no ordinary technology, it's weird because on one level, when you talk to them about future AI, right? Do you think future AI is going to kill us a bit? Okay, can you guys hear me? I think I dropped out for a minute.
I'm back. Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. One of us had bandwidth issues. I hope it wasn't me. But
I think it was me. Yeah, I was just saying people on the street, they don't realize that the current AIs that they're playing with might be really close to the ones from the future that they do believe in.
You mean they? I'm not sure I understand what you mean. You mean they don't? Can you elaborate? Say a little more.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is the average person that I talk to on the street who has like no tech background, I literally went out on the street with producer Ori a few days ago. The average person is scared of future AI. Like they're totally like, yeah, one day the AI is going to come get us. But they also have zero fear of current AI, which is understandable. And they don't realize that current AI is close to future AI.
Yeah, I mean, I do think future AI will in some sense be much more powerful. And I think, we may be a major breakthrough away, like a transformer level breakthrough away from what you could call superintelligence, maybe. But I think I basically agree with you that if you just extrapolate a little from what we've got, you've got something mind-blowingly powerful. And moreover, it is already exhibiting some of the symptoms that people like Eliezer have warned about. And I think it's to his credit that the scheming stuff, and yes, of course, the experiments are in some sense contrived, but, it's already demonstrating how hard it's going to be to control. And it's already clear that people are going to delegate a lot of stuff to it. The economics is just compelling from the point of view of a company, right? Like you want autonomous workers, you want people that you can just set loose and they'll do a great job. That's the kind of person you want to hire. That's the kind of AI they're going to want. They're going to give it a long leash. I mean, the economics of it are to give it a long leash because, after all, what are the chances that your particular AI goes badly awry? Well, maybe not that high. But if there's like a ton of companies with the same philosophy, interesting things could happen. Yeah, I agree with you. If what you're saying is causes of significant concern are already visible in what we've got, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree as well. All right, let's talk about your new book because I've seen little hints for a while now, and I'm considering pre-ordering it.
Well, God bless you. Yeah, it's called The God Test. The subtitle is Artificial Intelligence and Our Coming Cosmic Reckoning. Is that dramatic enough for you? Would you rather I shoot higher?
Yeah, that's good. The God Test, man. Okay, right. I guess you're trying to top if anyone builds it, everyone dies.
Actually, that's an impressive title. My hat's off. I chose, I was committed to mine before I heard his, but that's very good. It's actually characteristic of his particular kind of genius, I think. But yeah, so my book is cosmic. First of all, in the sense that I think AI is important enough to be viewed against the backdrop of the entire 3 billion years of evolution on this planet, and I do that. It's cosmic in the sense that I address a lot of philosophical issues that are raised by AI, but including some that you could call spiritual or religious. But the message, if there's a single message that I hope will get through, it's that governing, first of all, slow and careful is much better than what we have now, which is just a kind of untrammeled arms race environment. We need to proceed deliberately and cautiously, A, and B, that can't be done in an international environment of great conflict and hostility. So long as Sam Altman and Dario can keep us scared of China, then it's going to be a reckless arms race. So I think for that reason alone, we need to get relations on China with China on a better footing. But moreover, in the long run, handling this technology is going to demand true international governance, and so there's going to have to be cooperation of an institutional nature among nations, and it's going to have to happen fast. I mean, we don't have that much time, and I'm interested in your view, Liron. I find an astoundingly high number of people in the AI safety community who sound like they'd be unresponsive to what I just said, in the sense that they are also sounding the China alarm, and they're freaking out because we may give China some H-20s. And I'd be okay with it. I'm not against the chip controls per se, but what I want to hear from them is what is the end game, A, and B, I want to hear that the end game is to use the leverage of chip controls to draw China into a cooperative framework where you have you start having more transparency and more trust and so on. Dario's idea that the goal is to bring China to its knees and to get it to renounce their form of government, I got bad news. That's not going to work out well. At least he has an end game. That's more than most of these people who are China hawks. But I just think we don't have much time to turn this relationship with China around. And that's one of a number of things we got to get right if we're going to handle this technology without a lot of carnage.
I'm glad you brought that up. And I know you come to it pretty regularly on your podcast, and I'm 100% on the same page. We got to cooperate with China. Now, this is when I hear other people opine on this, including Dario, including my YouTube commenters, it's like I use the analogy of a rock in a hard place, where people are like, look, I got this big rock. The big rock is that international coordination is hard, and China is going to be sneaky, Russia is going to be sneaky. And so no matter what, you're not going to get international cooperation. That is my absolute, that is my axiom. I'm like, okay, but I've got a hard place over here. No matter what, and my axiom is that it's highly unlikely or impossible that we're going to get 10 or 20 year time frame aligned AI. That's not going to kill everybody. So if we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, coordination isn't actually game theoretically impossible under the current game theory of the AI that kills everybody. So I would try to chisel away at that rock.
Right. I would say even if the chances of cooperation were low, which is a premise I don't grant, if the consequences of not doing it are bad enough, that has to be the thing you try to do. You have to shoot for cooperation. Now, I think the difficulty of it is being greatly overstated by people who misunderstand actually the nature of China and the government and its aspirations. But in any event, if you accept Dario's own premises in the sense of his view of the coming power of the AI, I don't see how he escapes the conclusion that you're going to have to cooperate with China, honestly, because if you grant him his race to superintelligence that's going to bring them to their knees, obviously, if you're China, you would like to stop our right before we become dominant, and you very likely got a war between nuclear powers on your hands. It doesn't make any sense. But I agree with you. If the consequences of not cooperating are hard enough, are bad enough, you have to try it almost no matter how hard it is. Moreover, China's a lot of rational people in China. Maybe if indeed the consequences of not cooperating are that bad, they can understand that. I'm sure they can. And that will encourage them to cooperate.
Right. On this topic of maybe it's not as hard as it seems, I read this book by Richard Rhodes, Dark Sun, one of the books about the Cold War, basically, and the nuclear arms race. And I got the impression, I don't know if this is every historian's view, but I got the impression that the US was really inflating Russia's bloodthirstiness with its nuclear arsenal, or even potentially just its capability to build its nuclear arsenal. And that was justifying the US side of the Cold War. Listen, the Russians have all this stuff, we got to go all out. When in reality, the book makes it seem like the Russians were actually being very reasonable and had a smaller nuclear arsenal, and they should have just had more peace talks.
Threat inflation is just almost an inherent part of politics in any country, really. Under the right circumstances. I suspect that China is more afraid of us than is entirely warranted. I feel sure we're more afraid of them than is entirely warranted. But, I'm old enough to remember the Cold War. We were scared, like it was a death struggle. And when I went over to Russia in the early 1990s for the first time, when it was actually still the Soviet Union, I went into one of the finest department store in St. Petersburg and went to the department where in our department stores you would have had washing machines. And what they had was washboards. And in the electronics department, they had vacuum tubes for you to take home and repair your TV. We had been hugely overestimating the sheerly economic magnitude of the threat.
Yeah. That's a case in point, even though you didn't get to peer at their nuclear arsenal, but that's still analogous.
No, I mean that was real, but the point is, like, why not wait them out? We had the more powerful economic engine,
Right.
did we, if you look at all the stuff we did during the Cold War that got us into various kinds of trouble, including, a coup in Iran in '53 and all kinds of stuff down the road, Bay of Pigs. It just, like, was it really necessary? Why not just stabilize the situation? Mutually assured deterrence seems to be working, and calm down rather than do the kind of thing that could trigger trouble.
Totally. Just want to let the viewers know, you guys can always throw out questions. Right now I'm seeing other tangential discussions that I don't think I want to bring up, but yeah, feel free to throw out. One person said, because your launch date is September 1st, 2026, they want you to release it earlier if you have the copy finished, because we might not have much time to enjoy it.
I actually think there's a good chance it'll come out before that. There's a story behind that and why it got delayed, but I think I think it could be out as early as March. Now, releasing it, I don't have the legal authority to do that. My publisher, Simon & Schuster, would have grounds to sue me if I started giving away copies for free. So yeah, I can't release the whole book. Maybe, I will increasingly as time goes on, probably have parts of it in my newsletter, the NonZero newsletter. They will have to be paywalled for even that to be meet with the approval of my publisher. But
great. All right, sounds good. So let's give viewers your call to action. Maybe something like everybody should read Eliezer's book, and then add your book to their watch list.
I'm happy for those two things to happen, absolutely. And I encourage them to be skeptical of China threat inflation as well.
All right, sounds good. Cool. Well, keep up the great work with the podcast, and everybody, don't forget about that too. It's a top podcast in my opinion.
All right. Thanks, Liron.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. All right. Have a good one. Let's see. Who's coming up next? You guys all know a man named Roko Mijic, because when you think about Rocco's Basilisk, the post on Less Wrong that everybody associates with Less Wrong, that is not just an abstract post. It's connected to a guy. And you're about to meet that guy. Please welcome Roko Mijic. Hey, Roko.
Hi, Liron. Thanks for having me on. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for coming on, man. And thanks for chilling in the waiting room. I know we're running a little over time.
Yeah, well, that's fine. It's been a fantastic evening. I've listened to what a lot of other people have had to say. It's been pretty interesting, pretty eye-opening. And I have managed to actually read quite quickly the whole book.
Wow. Okay, great. So you're highly qualified to come comment here, because a lot of the guests have been mostly positive on the book, thinking that people should read the book. The book's a contribution to discourse, but you're here near the end to tell everybody that is wrong.
Well, I do think it's an important contribution, but I do think that the conclusion of the book is in fact wrong.
Okay, say more.
So first of all, why do I think it's an important contribution to the discourse if it's actually wrong? Well, because I think the overall level of the discourse, and I'm one of the earliest Less Wrong users. I was on Overcoming Bias, commenting on Eliezer's post before Less Wrong even existed, back in 2007. So, I've been on both sides of this. I was kind of a singularitarian transhumanist type early on. Then Eliezer really kind of convinced me to become risks-pilled, and I basically refused a PhD with Jürgen Schmidhuber because I was worried about AI risk back in 2010. And Jürgen Schmidhuber, of course, is one of the founders of the field. He's been super influential. I do think that this book, which is basically a book form of Eliezer's less wrong sequences on AI risk, is wrong. And I think it's wrong for several reasons. But the arguments it makes are good arguments. There's a bunch of correct arguments there. So what I would highlight is I think Eliezer's take on moral philosophy, meta-ethics, and AI is basically very important and correct. There's no reason to expect that an AI system will automatically be quote-unquote good for whatever your definition of good is, right?
Right, so orthogonality thesis is true.
I think sort of a weak form of your orthogonality thesis is true in the sense that, you can make a computable Boolean circuit that just does anything, right? So if you want to make, Stalin or Mao or Pol Pot, but in AI form, you can absolutely do that. There's no rule of computer science or physics that stops that. So, and I think a lot of people have, this sort of cope about great intelligence leading to great morality and stuff like that. I do think it's a cope. It's not true.
Scott Sumner, guilty of thinking that.
Yeah, I think that's a big cope. I think, there are a lot of other copes going on around. I think I'm going to disagree with Gary, who just said that he thinks that humanity will be resilient against superintelligence. That's complete nonsense. I don't know what he's smoking. No, we wouldn't.
Take that, Gary. Take that.
Like a complete not a nonsense. If it really was a war of humanity against superintelligence, we would lose. Probably not in a way that's as spectacular as Eliezer thinks. Like Eliezer thinks it would go and invent nanotechnology and then bootstrap that into femtotechnology and then summon a black hole. No, it would just shoot us with robots. Like it would be very boring. It would be just picture what's going on in Ukraine, except just everywhere, right?
Well, I think it would shoot us with robots. I agree that it would kill us unceremoniously because it would be so easy for it to. But if it had to, it could also kill us in a flashy way.
Yeah, maybe, but it depends on the level of it. And this comes to one of my first big criticism, which is a lot of people are using the term superintelligence in a way that I think really brings down the level of the debate because, there is no such thing as superintelligence. It's not a specific thing. It's a philosophical foil that Nick Bostrom invented. It's sort of like a limit. It's like in the limit of superintelligence, in the limit of an AI that has more and more and more capabilities, such that it eclipses humans or it eclipses individual human capability in each possible area, you're getting closer and closer towards superintelligence, right? But I think we will probably never actually encounter a superintelligence in the strict sense. We will just encounter super competent AIs that are very good at a lot of different things. Probably not just a single model, probably a whole collection of models. Probably instead of think about artificial civilizations and artificial firms instead of artificial intelligences. So we're going to encounter these. They will be super competent and they will be sort of strategically decisive. So I really think people should actually stop using the word superintelligence and just talk about strategically decisive artificial intelligence because that's a bit more clear.
Do you think a good intuition pump is to think about like Mark Zuckerberg, where like obviously if you give him a year versus me a year and you say make the next $1 billion company, he has like a 99.9% chance of beating me in that contest. But if you just show me like any 2-hour slice of his day, there's a good chance that I could copy most of those slices, right? So it's like the genius is somehow like relatively small pieces.
The other thing is that a requirement for superintelligence is that it has to be better than any human at every possible task, which is really far too big an ask. Right, a good intuition pump here is think about when we developed machinery in the 1800s, right? So we developed steam engines that could do mechanical work instead of animals and humans, right? So you might think that because once we invented machines, we'll invent a super machine, and a super machine will make all human manual labor completely irrelevant. Well, it's now 2025, and it turns out that this is like nearly 200 years later. It turns out that human beings are still a state-of-the-art tool, a state-of-the-art physical tool in warfare, in doing odd jobs and all sorts of random things. And there's all sorts of things where humans are still state-of-the-art. But at the same time, machines are strategically decisive in the sense that if you have an army that has tanks and planes and missiles fighting an army that only has humans, the army that only has humans is just going to be absolutely crushed in a really comical way. So it's not really the super machine that matters, it's the strategically decisive machine, like the battle tank or the machine gun.
Okay, all right. That's your position. But let's talk about the core of Eliezer's argument, because you have a major crux of disagreement with Eliezer and with this book. You have three? All right, let's hear it.
So crux number one is, I think Eliezer, and this comes back to the super intelligence stuff we were talking about, I think he has a sort of broken model of what intelligence is. I would distinguish between a sort of scalar model of intelligence, which is sort of like a stat in a video game where you can just keep having more and more and more of it, and the more of it you have, the more powerful you are, versus what I'd sort of call an algorithmic / patternist conception of intelligence, where intelligence is a set of executable heuristics and patterns which are good at achieving things. And those might sound like they're the same thing, but they're really not. An intuition pump here is, if you think about chess AIs, so how like if you play the strongest human champion, like someone like Garry Kasparov or someone like that, against the strongest current chess AI, the current chess AI will beat them with high probability, right? Especially in like a 10 match or 10 round match, right? But what if you give the best human a small material advantage, like one pawn, right? What will happen then?
I think the best AI can win, with a decent material handicap.
Yeah, but I mean, how big is it?
I mean, that's actually a good question. I'm not tracking that.
I think this is right now. It's about one knight, right? That's the advantage.
Yeah, but that gets to the finiteness of the game, the smallness of the game, right? I mean, I think that if the game is like Life, right, or even like a big MMORPG or whatever, I think that the handicaps can be quite large because of the nature of the game.
They can, but again, it depends on what the situation is. So I think this just sort of exposes a philosophical difference between thinking that intelligence is like a stat in a video game. So if you had an infinitely intelligent chess computer, it could beat you with just like a king and one pawn, because it would be like super intelligent. So just one pawn is enough because it's super intelligent and you're not, right? So it can do anything, right? But that's actually not true. Even if you were playing against a supercomputer that used the entire observable universe as a computer, the best chess players in the world, like people like, Kramnik or Kasparov, or people like that, could beat that universe-sized supercomputer with only maybe, a rook's worth or a rook and a pawn's worth of advantage.
Right. Okay, but hold on. I'm just trying to understand. This is like your main. We're still in your point number 1 of 3, right?
Yeah, 1 of 3.
So basically, and you're saying intelligence isn't a scalar. But why does this mean intelligence isn't a scalar?
It's not exactly a scalar because, or at least it's not this sort of video game style scalar where it's like a sort of like you can sort of pour it into this glass and eventually the glass just overflows and you win, right? So it just doesn't work like that. There are some situations where infinite intelligence isn't enough to win, and
but chess is a bad analogy, though.
It's a situation where infinite intelligence isn't enough to win. Chess with a 7-point material handicap is unwinnable if you're playing against.
You think the amount of headroom of humans in the human mind in the physical universe, you think is kind of close to, like, you think that the ultimate smartest possible AI built in 1,000 years from now is only like a pretty small handicap away from only being human level?
It actually depends what the starting state of the board is, right? Because if you're this AI with equal so if you have an AI civilization which has equal resources to human civilization, as in all the same capabilities and facilities and stuff, you'll crush it, right? But that's not necessarily what the starting point's actually going to be. And we can discuss what that starting point is likely to be a little bit later. But there is a key philosophical difference here of, do you see intelligence as sort of like a scalar video game like stat where you can just pour more of it in and you always win? Or is it this sort of algorithmic patternist thing where whether intelligence is decisive is just a question. The answer can either be yes or no. And
I think you're making two separate arguments, right? That it's not a scalar, it's like a multi-dimensional thing compared to there's not much headroom to have that much more intelligence than humans. These are two very different points.
Whether there is headroom depends on what the state of the board is. So
all right, but just to clarify, Roko, I'm not even getting if you think there's a lot of headroom above human intelligence.
So I think this is a sort of scalar intelligence brain to take. It depends on what the state of the board is. In some board states, like tic-tac-toe, there isn't any.
Okay, but I can tell you in chess, there's a lot of headroom above me, right? I'm like, I have zero chess skill whatsoever, right? And I think that you could probably have the computer lose its queen and still beat me.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is a good analogy to humans in the universe.
So I would say the universe isn't a well-defined board state. You have to define what the resources are that's actually available to the
Yeah, sure, but that's easy. Okay, so it gets a data center, right? It gets the amount of hardware in a modern data center and nothing else, and it just has to bootstrap from there.
Yeah, but you also then have to define what is outside that data center. So are there just humans? Are there other AIs, etc.? So this is like, you have to actually really define the scenario well. And once we get in, so before we can get into that horse trading of like, what's the scenario? What does the AI have? What's it against? You have to have, what's your philosophy of intelligence? Do you believe intelligence is like a scalar? It's like a stat in a video game where once you have like an infinite pool of it, you can do anything, versus this sort of algorithmic, philosophy of intelligence where it's just a set of executable heuristics for completing tasks. So I think
right, let's put a pin in that.
Basically, Eliezer has like a broken model of what intelligence is.
All right, let's do 2 and 3.
The second one is he has a broken theory of change, so he doesn't really understand how change happens in the world. When things change in the world, it's complicated, right? If you imagine going back to the Industrial Revolution, just before the Industrial Revolution, or before the Spanish conquest of the Americas or something like that, and you said, okay, we're now going to try and predict what's going to happen. If you thought about it like Eliezer does, you might say something like, well, there's going to be some civilization that develops machinery, and that's going to be a decisive strategic advantage, and that civilization is going to just conquer the whole rest of the world with no significant opposition forever, and that's the end. And it didn't happen. It was complicated. Once industry was developed in here where I'm talking to you from England, once it was developed, it sort of it spread a little bit. Other forces that were rivals got a little bit of that industry, and they had their own industrial revolutions. But the fact that England was first was important. It did give it a lot of power, right? And then what actually happened when you had things like the American War of Independence, a big part of the reason that the Americans were able to get independence was because they were not fighting against just America versus England. It was actually America and France versus England, because France didn't want England to have that advantage, right? But also, it wasn't like France was perfectly aligned with America, right? And then there were probably
Okay. Let's recap. I want to get to the whole argument, high level, right? So recap point 2 and go to point 3.
Basically, if you read Yudkowsky's posts and the book, it has a broken theory of change. It doesn't actually understand how things really change in the world. It doesn't take into account game theory, etc., etc. Okay, so the final point is that Eliezer is not sufficiently pessimistic about the prospect for humanity without AI. In fact, not only is he not sufficiently pessimistic about it, he doesn't even talk about it at all. So he makes the recommendation that we should ban AI without even analyzing at all what will happen in the scenario where AI is banned, without considering the things that could go wrong just as a result of humanity continuing to exist and the systems that we have, breaking and so on and so forth. And I think humanity is actually, well, not humanity, I think Western civilization is actually in a pretty bad place at the moment. And because Western civilization is the dominant civilization of the world, that means the world is in a pretty bad place at the moment.
Okay, fair enough. I think for people who want to drill down on number 3, we gave that a pretty good treatment when you came on my show a few months ago. So everybody searched Doom Debates, Roko, Mijic.
Yeah. But one thing I'll say is the book just simply doesn't mention that. And, deciding to sort of ban potentially permanently the most promising, perhaps the only really promising technology to make the world a better place, you can't really rationally advocate for that in an intellectually honest way without at least dedicating one page to saying what could go wrong, what are the bad things that could in fact cause.
Okay, fair enough. So let's focus on 1 and 2, because it sounds like you're getting off on a lot of different stops on the Doom train. You don't even just have one crux with Eliezer, right? You have multiple. So intelligence isn't a scalar, and also Eliezer isn't considering, you claim, like the multi-agent game theory type dynamics. Those are your two main points besides the P Doom without AI.
Yeah, and I mean another way to sort of put that second one is that, when Eliezer talks about how artificial intelligence could cause problems and could kill everyone, he sort of assumes that there won't be property rights. Property rights will not be respected, right? So AI will come into the world. It will be powerful. It will not respect property rights. And so because it's more powerful than us and doesn't respect property rights, it can take our stuff. Now, there are a lot of relationships in the world where there is one agent that's more powerful than another, and that agent simply doesn't just take their stuff because property rights are a thing. Now, what Eliezer might say is, well, obviously property rights wouldn't be a thing because, why should the AI, rationally speaking, respect property rights if it has this decisive advantage against the rest of humanity? But the thing is, I think it's actually very unlikely now that there will be a single AI that has the kind of decisive advantage that allows it to rationally ignore property rights, as opposed to working within the existing property rights system and basically making a ton of money. And, this applies whether it's a sort of decision theoretically independent sort of AI with its own goals, or whether it's like an AI company where a person or a board or something are in control. Like, in either of those cases, if that system doesn't have an extreme decisive strategic advantage, it might just work within the property rights system and then become a firm which sells products and services, which is how everything else works.
So just to recap, it's the first place where you get off Eliezer's doom train is you basically don't think singleton is plausible at all, right? Like a single AI that fooms quickly and takes over everybody. You just think you're dismissing that immediately, right?
I didn't say I don't think a singleton is possible. I said the idea of a single AI automatically having decisive... Because, you see, you can have multiple different entities come together voluntarily into a singleton, and that's kind of like what a country or a nation state is. But that's not the same thing as one AI being, born in a lab.
Right, okay, so you think Foom is extremely unlikely?
Yes, I also think Foom is basically impossible now. It's very
so I mean, the moment you say Foom is super unlikely, I think you've already kind of gone away from Eliezer's mainline doom scenario. He sees Foom as being quite likely just because it's so easy from the AI's perspective to get smarter and seize resources. There's so much low hanging fruit. Why wouldn't it Foom? And you're already no, it's definitely not going to Foom. So there's already a big divergence right there, correct?
So there are a couple of reasons why you might think there could be a Foom. One of them that Eliezer has talked about a lot is recursive self-improvement, which I think is basically a complete dud. And, the fact that he hasn't really come clean on this is kind of a bit of a black mark against him, right? Eliezer spent a long time talking about recursive self-improvement. It just turns out that neural networks are very bad at recursive self-improvement because they're opaque to us. They're also opaque to themselves. They can't get good gradient signals on just making arbitrary changes to their own network. It just doesn't work. People have tried, it doesn't work. And not only that, but if you again come back to the sort of patternist algorithmic theory of intelligence, intelligence is just a set of executable patterns for achieving things in the world. So one of the reasons that LLMs are quite powerful and economically useful at the moment is because they have a general learning algorithm that goes out into the world, into the internet, and sucks up a lot of these executable heuristics. It goes on to Reddit, it goes on to Wikipedia, it goes on and gets all of this knowledge from outside and sucks it into this black box function approximator and then spits it back out. And that's very useful, right? But if you start saying, well, this thing's going to start recursively self-improving, it's going to start making up new knowledge on its own inside its own little... It's going to be inside of a box, and just have this knowledge and then make up its own heuristics. That's actually quite hard, right? People have been trying. It's not as easy as just going out onto the internet and hoovering up a bunch of existing content. Now, people are trying with RL, and I know that I have some people who are working a lot on making artificial environments for reinforcement learning so that AIs can not necessarily recursively self-improve, but they can undergo these sort of training simulations and learn from and do sim to real transfer. It's just going to be more difficult. And I think overall, the whole process that we've seen has been sort of like what I call the fossil fuel era of AI, where there was a bunch of this content out on the internet. AIs developed a learning algorithm and a representation that was very good for sucking it up, and they got super powerful. But that circumstance is just complete death for the Yudkowskian recursive self-improvement ideas that he had. It's like a worst case scenario for him.
I definitely disagree, but this isn't a whole Doom Debates episode.
Yeah.
We had one of those, and there's a good chance we'll have another, because I do consider you a good sparring partner, even though you're making a lot of claims that I totally disagree with, and I feel like if we hash it out, I feel like I could have good rebuttals, but I just wish more people like you would come out and test all different parts of the belief, because I do think that in sparring with you, good explanations can come out. And I actually wish that Eliezer would take your bait once in a while, because I'd like to read how he responds.
I do agree that I think most of the criticisms of the Yudkowskian paradigm are bad, lazy, people who don't really understand it. You can't really accuse me of that, because I've been in Yudkowsky's circles for nearly 20 years. So I really understand the argument very well. But I do think most criticisms are just very bad. And I think in general, we're just, as a species, underspending on this debate. People should really be drilling down much more deeply into this, both on the pro risk and the con side. I don't necessarily think that AI is safe. I don't think everything's going to be happy times. But I think the specific Yudkowskian reasons for worrying are just like empirically wrong. It's like, they were live until about 2020, then LLMs came along and they just started dying for empirical reasons.
All right, well, I disagree, but I think it's cool that we've lived through multiple eras of this discussion. You and I go back to like 2009 in the same rationalist social circles, and I hope we'll still be here in a decade. We're still sparring. Thanks for coming on the party.
Maybe. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. So this is... Here, let me check the guest list here. Okay, so this is the party's scheduled wrap-up time, but you're now looking at the after party, and we've got a surprise guest, a dark horse guest who's going to be coming up soon. Just give me 1 second to ping him that this is the after party. All right, so I'm not going to spoil it yet. Let's go to another clip. As you know, a few days ago, me and producer Ori were out on the streets of Saratoga Springs, New York, representative, kind of a middle America-ish city. And we were talking to regular folks about if anyone builds it, everyone dies. And this gentleman was very nice about sparring with me and kind of disagreeing, but kind of being open to the idea. Let's see what he had to say.
If an AI is going to replicate human intelligence, it means it has to have the capability for strategic behavior in order to make trade-offs between multiple outcomes. The ability of an artificial intelligence to engage in strategic behavior should terrify everyone, and it should be tightly controlled.
Yeah, exactly. So, this book is making the case for why we need very tight AI regulation before it becomes super intelligent. Does that worry you that it might become super intelligent?
That depends. Is it like in a basement somewhere, only hooked up to one computer and giving us insight?
It's on the internet, my friend. It's on the internet.
That's not real AI yet. ChatGPT is nothing but a large language model. Ask it any question, ask a second question, and you can tell you're talking to an AI.
Sir, we're extrapolating the trajectory 5 or 10 years.
You won't be at generalized intelligence on the internet in 5 to 10 years.
How confident are you?
Very. But
did you know that the expert consensus on the prediction markets is 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, and experts were saying 5 to 10 years on fusion power for the past 70. Right.
So do you think that you should live your life according to a confident belief that contradicts these experts?
I don't know what these are. Well, you haven't defined who these experts are, and I have not read that book, so I'm not trying to contradict everyone. I'm telling you from my own personal experience, having some experience developing technology, maybe not that's that kind of technology, that a lot of this stuff takes longer than people think, and that where we are right now is not a big deal. I'm not concerned about now, and I'm not concerned about ChatGPT. I'm not even that concerned on the 5 or 10, right? But 25, we should be afraid.
Yeah, well, the book still applies even if we're doomed in 25 years.
That's also true.
All right, thanks for your time.
Yeah, so that was a pretty another NPC semi-normie. Look at this feature, show it on the stream. All right, let's engage with you guys here in the live chat. What do you guys want to know or talk about? Simon saying strategic should be tariff. Okay, I don't have enough context for this comment. Reading your guys' chats. People are saying Roko is going on tangents. No, I mean he had coherent claims. Okay, Airwave saying, great man on the street. Have you had more who engaged? You guys want to see another man on the street? Who wants to see another man on the street? Here, I got one more clip for you guys. Let me just find it. It's actually a woman on the street. And actually, this woman represents a common theme out of all the people we talked to here in upstate New York. And the theme was that people would invoke their Christianity. Let's take a look.
What do you think is going to happen in 10 or 20 years if we keep producing artificial intelligence?
It's going to blow up the world if it doesn't before.
Do you think it's important that people get this message?
It's very important. People need to know it's God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Other than that, it's going to die out.
Fair enough. So what is your probability that the world is going to end if artificial intelligence gets smarter than humans in the next decade? How likely do you think it is?
I know it is likely. It will happen.
Okay, you guys heard it here. It is likely. It will happen. It is likely. Yeah. All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
What do you think is going to happen in 10 or 20 years if we keep producing artificial?
That's the man on the street. And we've got a couple more. We haven't given you guys everything, but we've got a few more clips releasing out over the next few days. And yeah, all right. So I'm going to check in with the comments again. Somebody's saying, I'm skeptical of expert consensus being 5 to 10 years to commercially viable fusion for the last 40 years. So somebody's basically doubting the claim of what the other guy said. Okay. Somebody's saying we should make a public service announcement movie for world leaders like Threads or The Day After that spooked Reagan. Yeah, exactly. Like President Reagan was famously spooked by a video of a movie about nuclear apocalypse. I think it might have been called The Day After, and I haven't seen that one, but I have seen Dr. Strangelove, which is actually a comedy, which I highly recommend. Even though it's black and white from the 60s or whatever, I'm not somebody who would normally watch that kind of thing, but Dr. Strangelove, 10 out of 10 movie, highly recommended. And it's also a movie that Daniel Ellsberg, who actually worked at the Rand Corporation on nuclear policy, he says that movie is sadly a documentary. So even though it's a comedy, it's also, according to him, scarily accurate. So yeah, shout out to Dr. Strangelove. A lot of shout outs today. Let's see. Ori, how's it going, man?
Good. The stream has been fun to watch. I like that the debate with Roko got a little heated. There were some sparks. Maybe Rocco's still listening, but yeah, some good conversations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we definitely got a good crew. I'm happy with the crew. In Doom debates, I like to think we'll get like increasingly high profile. So maybe the next live stream, it'll be like President Trump, President Xi Jinping. Like we'll get them together for debate. But this was pretty good for now.
Yeah, and if we get them, I mean, will they have to be serial guests, or at that point, first have them just like one after another, and then when we get even better, then they can come on at the same time.
Exactly. I think we managed to have that dynamic where people come on the show and sometimes they have like beefs with each other, but we don't let them debate each other. We just let them say their piece and then try to like merge across guests.
Yeah.
Because I saw Eliezer and Sam Altman did that across various podcasts back in 2023 when people were still open-minded about what's going to happen with AI. Sam Altman would do a podcast, Eliezer would do a podcast, and Sam would kind of snipe at Eliezer from across podcasts, but he didn't have the guts to just come on the same podcast and debate him.
Right. Now, in fairness to Roko, maybe, I feel like he's such a contrarian. He might disagree with everyone who's come on.
Yeah, you got to respect a good contrarian. That's something that we both, we hold close, we hold dear.
That's why the two of you get along so much.
Ori, you ready for the surprise guest?
Yeah, who is it? Hit me with it.
He's the man who's been called the AI safety YouTuber. Please welcome Rob Miles. Hey, Rob.
Hi.
Hey there.
Hey,
welcome to the party.
Thanks for having me. I
How's
feel
your
left
book launch
out,
day
man.
going?
Where's my hat?
All right, I'm gonna hop off so you two can chat.
All right, later, Roy.
Cool.
or is just the time filler.
Oh, I see. Well, I'm sure he's more than that.
Yeah. All right, Rob. So if anyone builds it, everyone dies. Book launch day. What are you reporting from the ground?
I actually have been doing other things, but I just was on Twitter, and I saw all kinds of stuff happening, and I saw that you were streaming, and then I remembered that you had messaged me, saying, did I want to come on this thing? So I'm coming on the thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Twitter for the win. Broadcasting out random stuff that people are doing. That's great. Where would we be without Twitter? Just sitting here in a video chat with Ori.
Yeah, we'd be better off in a lot of ways, but worse off in others, I guess.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. So let's engage with the commenters. I feel like we've been neglecting. Rob, this whole party you've been neglecting the commenters. Let's fix that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Debugger is saying, I think AI doomers take it out of proportion. Don't you think humans in politics are more dangerous to ourselves than AI? I mean, you could call this a rock and a hard place argument where like, oh, we can save ourselves from AI, but when we just kill ourselves in politics, what do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I think prioritizing things is important, but I think almost always when you raise an issue and people say, but consider this unrelated issue, it's like, okay, I don't know, I think we have several problems and let's talk about this one right now. It's not like we're desperately short on people talking about the problems with
Yeah.
politics.
Hey, Rob, I feel like your volume's coming in low. I don't know why.
Could be. I don't know what I can do about it from here, though.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, if people just raise their volume, and it's possible it's on my end.
Let's see. That's my output volume. Echo cancellation.
No, yeah, whatever. So have you been seeing any signs on the ground of how the book is being received or what impact it's had? Even just scrolling Twitter, what have you been observing?
I have been... I mean, it's kind of what you expect, right? A lot of people reacting to a book that they haven't read, for the most part, based on having read the title. I think we're going to get... I really hope that this kicks off some actual discussion once people have had time to read it. But, it makes sense that, like, on launch day, we shouldn't really expect that high a quality of conversation or something, because, obviously there were preview copies, but the preview copies go to... actually, I think they've done better than most.
Really?
At sending... I would guess, I don't actually know that this is true, I suspect, at sending preview copies to people who will have interesting opinions rather than people who will just agree with them.
I have an opinion about how to do preview copies. As somebody who has launched a total of 0 books, it seems to me like a preview copy of your book is a chance to basically network with people in your space, which, I mean, I guess that's, similar to this party right now, right? This is a big
Sure.
It's networking right here. And like, I just think they should have chosen like hundreds of people to be like, hey, I want your opinion. You're special to me. Here's a book. And then they'd like build all of these allies, and they could have like a Discord group for the allies and be like, hey, allies, do you guys mind like telling people about at your office about the book? I feel like they could have amplified the hype.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have specific details, but my understanding is that the authors have been somewhat limited by the publisher in what they're able to do. Like, I don't know, people didn't like the cover, and we were talking to them about that, and they were like, yeah, we don't get to pick the cover, that's the publishers do that. And like getting early access stuff, we were talking to them about maybe doing rational animations videos and getting early access to the book for that, and that was like not a trivial thing to do, and so on. So it wouldn't surprise me if the publishers were kind of limiting the number of preview copies they can send out or something. This is complete speculation on my part, I don't know. But,
stupid publishers, are they? Because the publisher ruined the cover too, right?
I mean, yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on the cover, but I'm not, aesthetics are not my speciality. But people who have opinions about this kind of thing didn't like the cover. I don't know.
Yeah, well, speaking of aesthetics, so I recently learned that you're one of those who is very simple about your wardrobe, right? So you've always got like the trousers and like the button-up shirt, but I thought it was always a red shirt, or like what are your acceptable colors?
Oh, I have several shirts. I usually do the red shirt for videos, but yeah, it is actually, I've just come from the gym, and everyone was like,
so this is basically your workout attire right here.
Yeah, I just didn't bring a change, but life is simpler that way.
Gotcha. Oh wow, so you really no kidding. Huh? So you were doing like pull-ups and stuff, wearing a button-up shirt.
I was doing squats and curls and stuff.
See that there's a YouTube video right there. So you're missing potential YouTube views.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I think this does come. It comes from the same place aesthetically, where I'm like, I don't know. I'm not about that. I'm not going to be making decisions day to day about what I'm wearing.
Well, you're hitting on a cool trend right now because there's Robert F. Kennedy who's like working out in jeans, and I saw there's like this guy who does marathons really fast and he runs it in jeans. So I think you're actually ahead of the curve here, just wearing regular clothes to the gym.
Huh. Okay. This is so like off topic, but sure.
This is what people like. Okay, we're breaking into the mainstream. We got to add more of this small talk.
Okay. All right.
I'm just kidding. It's just one of the few non-AI doom things on my mind. Okay, hold on. We have
honestly,
a listener
it is
question.
sometimes nice to talk about things that aren't that.
Yeah, somebody's saying Eliezer has managed to normify a bit in the last year. I mean, I guess with his appearance, yeah. I mean, they clearly did some Eliezer styling for the interview, which is great. Let's see here. So, by the way, somebody's asking, did Rune show up? Rune was actually one of the originally scheduled guests, but we just decided because Rune didn't have time to read the book and he felt like he didn't have much to say in the discussion, we have like 1 million guests. So Rune didn't happen, guys. You guys got me. But I'm amazed how everybody else came on the stream, even including people that I've never managed to get on the show before. I've been thrilled by the level of attendance.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of Gary Marcus talking. That was really interesting.
Yeah, Gary Marcus. Now with him, I felt like he'd be solid because he actually came on the show before, so I feel like I trust him to actually come. And sure enough, yeah, he's been reliable, which I appreciate. All right, let's see. We got some more good questions on the stream. So somebody's saying, go rational animations. So hold on, I think we got an honest-to-God question in here somewhere. Okay, if you guys are asking a question in the chat and I didn't get to it, feel free to just re-ask.
Have I tried chatting with an LLM and it goes off the rails?
There you go, yeah.
Depends what you mean by off the rails. I get most of the normal, just the thing where it hallucinates and then doubles down, and then just gets itself horribly confused. I've never had a language model go completely haywire on me, except Sydney back in the day when Bing Chat was going completely insane.
Right. So I'll take the question. Let's make this about me, okay? When I use these chatbots, I find them super useful. I ask them a lot of different questions. That I consider it like a second brain at this point. Like, if I'm gonna think, I want this extra help thinking. That's like how I think about AIs at this point. And they give all this good advice, but then sometimes they're just like totally wrong, especially like in an area where I know about. It's like, oh, you're saying that. That's wrong. But if you just ask them again, you can see how much they undermine themselves, and that gives you a pretty good signal on whether you should trust it. So you just like ask them, like, hey, explain why you're wrong, and you can see which parts, or even you can just say, hey, out of everything you just told me, like, what are you least sure about, right? Because that doesn't come across in the original message.
Yeah. I've seen some. There's been a little bit of progress on that. I think, I'm not sure if they trained a probe or if they were just looking at like logic probabilities. I think it was more sophisticated than that, but of highlighting sort of confidence in each token as it's generated, and so you can kind of see if this is a very mainline prediction or if there's on some level the models do have some. There are some indicators of when it's making things up or guessing. But I am surprised at how difficult that problem has turned out to be. I remember very early on, like, you have this thing where you just scale the thing up, and this happens less. But the actual kind of principled solutions have been surprisingly slow coming.
This is a different topic, but are you going to do a Rob Miles YouTube video that's all about this book specifically?
I might do. The thing is that the book is very valuable for being like a place that, for triggering a conversation, and also just for being a place to keep these things conceptually, like, rather than being in 1,000 different essays and research papers and things. You have a centralized place to keep these things, and that's valuable. But the actual material in there is not new, because the core problem hasn't actually changed. I think a lot of people get people who only found AI interesting when ChatGPT happened or something, which is most people, are like, I think they're a little confused about how this works, where like people thought about AI in general, in the concept of like, where is it going in the long run? What is it capable of in principle? What problems might we have? And the thing that's scary about AI progress is mostly that it just means that we have less time to deal with this than we thought we did. Right? It's not like we thought things were fine and then language models happened and now it's very scary. It's like AI was always going to be a huge problem. It was always going to require a ton of like care and understanding when we eventually, got there, and now all of this stuff is happening. And maybe there isn't a direct path from all this stuff to AGI, but I don't know, it seems to me like there probably is, depending on what you mean by direct.
That's a good point to stay on for a bit, which is that like, you and I and a lot of people we know were all convinced that it was like 98% likely or 90s, like very likely that AI would eventually, humans would build AI that would surpass the human brain eventually. But it just seemed like it was very plausible that it would still take more than a century. Like, I think we were all giving like double-digit probability to like, oh, we have like a whole century maybe.
Yeah, I think I first started getting interested in this stuff around 2010 maybe. And at that time, I think I would have said double-digit probability on it doesn't happen in my lifetime.
Totally.
But not like high double digits. I feel like I was probably like, I don't know, Kurzweil says 2045 or something, and like, I'm not going to be that old in 2045. And so like, it does seem pretty likely to be a problem that I will face. And if it's not a problem that I face, it's probably something that my like children will face or something.
I'm now old enough to have this experience multiple times where there's technologies that I've thought about before and just assumed it wouldn't happen in my lifetime, and then it actually happens or seems really close to happening. I think that the iPhone screen was just something that I just did not expect to see in reality. Like, I just didn't know screens could ever do that. It came out in 2007. I was like just out of college. I'm like, what the hell? Like, that is like a hell of a screen. I'm still amazed by the fact that like phones with screens that are this could exist, that like the laws of physics even allow this. I'm like, holy crap. And that was like a more general update for me of like, yeah, when you can manhandle like molecules in the universe, you can really do a lot.
Yeah. There is kind of a bias to these things where like sometimes impossible things happen and a lot of things kind of seem impossible right up until they happen. We see this historically a lot. People are usually surprised by technological progress.
Yeah, another fun case in point. I actually tweeted this. I remember I was just like chilling in bed as the clock was turning to midnight of the year 2020, before the whole pandemic stuff started, or rather before anybody knew that he was talking about it starting.
Not anybody.
So it was like New Year's Eve turning into 2020. And I was just thinking about like, man, so now we're equidistant from 1990 and 2050. If in 1990 you told me about the iPhone, that is as crazy to me as telling me right now about like the Inspector Gadget propeller. Like Inspector Gadget, like he had this propeller that would come out of his backpack and he just like held onto it and he could just like fly around. I'm like, that's as crazy as that. Whereas now, from my perspective in 2025, I'm like, isn't somebody making that? Like, shouldn't that work right now? It's just like a drone. Like, yeah, that'll be fun. And now it's like, wow, it's already here. I don't think it'll take till 2050. And I was just like making a joke, but now it's like, oh yeah.
No, people get used to things so fast, and people radically underestimate the craziness of the present from the perspective of the past.
Yeah.
Like, the world that we live in is completely insane. It's so, like, I still don't, that people still criticize anything about this as science fiction. There are two different angles you could come at this from, right? The science fiction criticism. On the one hand, any description of technology that doesn't yet exist, like if you're telling a specific story that contains technology that doesn't exist, that is science fiction, right? And therefore, a a 100% accurate description of the year 2025, written in 2020, is science fiction. Like, definitionally, unambiguously, anyone looking at it would be like, well, this is a science fiction story about the future technology of 2025. Therefore, identifying something as science fiction, like something seeming like science fiction, is not a disqualifying criterion for a prediction. It's actually a necessary criterion. Like, if you write something about the future that isn't science fiction, that like doesn't involve any new technology that doesn't exist, that's not going to happen, right? Like, not being science fiction makes it implausible. But then there's another angle, which is like, well, it's not that this is something in the genre of science fiction, by which I mean it contains future technology that doesn't exist, but that it's like a story, right? Like, the way that people are behaving is like unrealistic, or the structure of the thing is like too, satisfying, or, the thing, like, if you tell a story of the future where AI becomes incredibly powerful and tries to take over the world, but then like a plucky ragtag team of lovable misfits manages at the last second to, in a heroic sacrifice, shut the AI down or something, that's like science fiction, right? But the thing that's the science fiction component there is that we win, rather than anything about the technology necessarily.
No, totally. I mean, if you try to tell tales from World War II, like some crazy stuff, that's just like, I don't know, that might be a particularly good environment where things that, like, a bunch of really crazy stuff happens in like weird sequences. And yeah, that's what real history looks like. And from the perspective of somebody like hundreds of years ago, it's like, what the hell? It'd be great to like have practiced those kinds of like shocks of what actually happened. Okay, so let's take one. There's a good question from the live chat. Let's just take that and then we'll wrap it up, because this has been a long party. All right, so this is from Daniel Brockman. He says, question for Rob. Would you say that reinforcement learning is the terrifying thing about AI? Can we say RL is a specific aspect that makes it scary into these scary optimizers? So basically, how bad is RL, or are there lots of other scary things too?
Yeah, I mean, if you could build a superintelligence out of a giant conglomeration, like if you could build it with good old-fashioned AI, and you're like handwriting code to do everything, that system is still very, very dangerous, right? Like, this is what we used to be worried about back when we thought that might be possible.
That's right.
RL, and I mean, it's not5necessarily actually impossible, it just turns out that you can do it with way less understanding, and so, okay. But RL introduces a bunch of additional issues, or rather, like, doing things with neural networks introduces a bunch of additional issues of just like, now you have no idea what the hell your system is doing, or how it works. And then, and then doing RL with neural networks adds additional problems on top of that. So it's like, RL is bad news. It definitely takes things that were less scary and makes them more scary. But it's not like the cause of problems. I actually think that people should be very... I wish that we had a cultural norm of being very, very suspicious of the word the. Anytime you use the word the, you're sneaking in quite a strong assumption that there's only one of something, right? Like, we had this before where somebody was like, isn't the problem political, whatever? I'm like, where are you getting this the problem? Like what? We can only have one problem?
Yeah.
We have
No,
several
I'll
problems.
be honest, I used this to my advantage when I said, hey, everybody come to the unofficial
Right. And people should have said, is it the only one? Is that, let's examine that assumption.
I was doing a frame control.
Yeah, kind of. So then, like, if, is RL the problem? No, but it is kind of a problem, yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, Eliezer has commented that he thinks that we're in a worse situation from RL being so powerful because, even though there's other problems, this is still definitely a new problem that it's just going to, we're not even going to have like code that we understand driving it, essentially.
Yeah, it's one of the things that pushes you towards sort of agency and planning and all of those things that you
Yeah,
have to
exactly.
be
Right
really,
here,
really careful
I do have a little extra time. If you have a little extra time, let's do this
Sure.
other question. Cool. Okay, question for Robert from Simon. Do you experiment with red teaming system prompts?
Do I experiment with red teaming system prompts? No, actually, not really. My interaction with AI is pretty, like, I mostly just get mundane usefulness out of them. I use them for a ton of things. I'm not generally trying to break them. I think part of it is I do everything on my main account. Like, I got early access to a bunch of these tools, and I'm just kind of scared. Like, I don't want to try and, like, oh, let me see if I can get this model to teach me how to make smallpox or something. I don't want to have to call somebody up and try and get my account unbanned. I don't know. It fascinates me, but it's not something I spend much of my time doing.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Pliny the prompter for that.
Right, exactly.
Nice.
Specialization is not for insects, actually.
Exactly. All right, Rob. So here, stay at the party. Help me close it out. We're gonna shut this down. Everybody, please welcome the Doom Debates robot.
Oh my god! All right. Oh, okay. I'm so glad that I got to be here for this.
Doom Debates
Of all
robot.
people.
Yes.
It's knocked down the.
All right. Yeah, this is what we were doing on the streets. We're doing our robot costume. All right, Doom Debate.
Is that an AI safety YouTuber?
Yeah.
You're going down, Miles.
Okay. All right.
all
Good.
right.
I'm glad. I'm glad that we're
Well,
taking this as seriously as it deserves.
Yeah, exactly. This is a critical issue that everybody needs to pay attention to. And to balloon drop.
Okay. All right.
All right, everybody.
Cool.
So that was the If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies launch party. If you thought this was cool, please go pick up a copy of this book. This is just a big infomercial for this book. This is, not technically sponsored or anything, but just we think you should get the book. Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, besides that, stay tuned to Doom Debates. We got more great content coming out for you, but this week is just all about If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies. All right, good night, everybody.
Thanks so much.
See you, Rob.